They allowed the Gargaris to ride on the plane, and upon our instructions, they were going to be arrested only when they're in the plane about to take off. And that's exactly what happened. So all this leads to a conspiracy once again of trying to, escape accountability. Mr. Wang, alias Yenny Sonson.
Mr. Honorable Chairman, I don't think we have that kind of influence that you are insinuating, citing for the fact that
I'm not insinuating anything. I go by the facts.
in your custody. I mean, what influence and power are you talking about? I don't see any. From any point of view, I already told you, we are not connected to the government. We are just trying to make projects, and we overreach. I guess we reach for we are
Not overreaching. If you had been a cameraman, you would have said, yes, actually, I made an inquiry with the air charter services, trying to help my friend get out. Yeah, I made the preliminary statements. Don't blame me because I'm just being a friend. You probably...
But that's what I said.
It never came to your mind, right?
But that's what I said in that, you saw the statement. That's what I said. I made inquiries first, and I handed over to him because I said I don't know.
And right away, you never even said that, hey, don't go out because you're going to put me in trouble, as you are in trouble right now. You're sweating buckets right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Anyway, again, I'm off to another start here. I'm asking you, how come you cannot account for what we have discovered and that, can you go to the next slide, that one, 7.9 unaccompanied, and there are about 3.4 billion, was it? There are 3.5 billion unknown suppliers. You know what that means? Even from the very beginning of this inquiry, there was a lie already. A lie supported by the fact that they had to pay additional taxes. You are Mr. Tiger, Phil.
I don't know, Mr. Tiger.
I'm beginning to, you can't blame us if we say maybe the supplies never came.
Mr.
The Alamo, they never arrived. The reinforcements never arrived.
Mr. Chairman, I can provide. I said in my fears, I can provide.
And provide us with the detail of all this because we have to know whether people, the supplies that you sent were actually brought in all the way down to the people who needed it. That's what we're trying to find out. We're not happy we're doing this. It's hard going, but we're trying to find out what your company has done, and your record isn't exactly smooth, and your friends are in high places. You were with the president. You were with Lincoln Ong. Lincoln Ong sits down with the president, and he stops to the president with a short spoon, as Michael Young, And Michael Young is at the center of these things. He doesn't pay taxes. And now, your people don't even report that you have people in the other corporations that should have been reported to the BIR. So the long arm of the law has come in and embraced you, all of you.
Mr. Chairman, if the question is whether we have delivered, I don't understand why the burden lies with us. We have the parties accepting it, show that we have delivered. We have shown proof that we have delivered. And now we can show photo proof for each contract that we delivered at the warehouse with the thing itself. So I don't understand why the burden of proof lies whether we purchased it and how much we purchased it at. If the price was an issue, then everybody who bid above our price in every single contract should be brought here because they are attempting to scam the government in your statement, perhaps. But every single merchant just offers a price. And so, but from what I've read so far, is that we offer the lowest price. So I don't know why we are the only one crucified here if you're talking about our price. But in terms of delivery per se,
don't worry, we'll crucify others.
We have proved we delivered. But
just worry about yourself.
It feels very. we feel very pressured in that we need to show our books, our costs. How does that relate to determining? Why does that determine? How is that determining? I thought the determination is whether we delivered.
Either lying and amoral. I think you're both. Because you can't seem to distinguish anymore. Your company has done a great disservice to our country from the findings of this committee from the very beginning. every stage of the investigation was accompanied by a lie. It's just like false news, fake news. You know. Now let me ask you a simple question then: who is Dennis Morris? Daniel Morris. Morris Daniel.
Morris Daniel is the name that Mohit told me to communicate with.
The statement in the letter says the initial inquiry came from Jensen Wang and was then handed over to Morris Daniel, who signed the contracts for both Business Beyond Limits, OPC, and also Rocks Trading. So it's one whole sentence.
And
You must have known Daniel Morris, right? Or Morris Daniel.
I believe maybe Morris Daniel is.
Please answer the question forthrightly and honestly.
I believe Morris Daniel is probably a name that Mohit made up.
It's just a name.
Just a name. Because I passed the contact to Mr. Dargani.
Did you say that Mohit Dargani invented the name? Did you just say that?
I do not know.
You said I believe. I said I believe that it could be an invented name.
It could have been.
Made up.
But as I said, I handed
Did you say that? Did you say that? Did you just say that?
Mr. Chairman, I said I handed
Did you just say that?
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman.
How can you not sure? You just said it.
I said I handed, as I said in my statement, I handed it to Mr.
No, just a while ago.
In my real statement,
I believe that Mohit Dargani might have just invented the name.
If you're asking me, do I know this person? I don't know this person.
I asked you that, but you said your answer was, I believe Mohit Dargani made up the name.
No, then I said, you asked me, do I know a Morris Daniel? I said, no. Then you say, whom that this Morris Daniel be? I said, maybe, perhaps, Mr. Dargani made up the name.
Oh, there you go.
But I don't know for certain.
There you go, made up the name.
As I said, clearly, I handed the thing to Mr. Dargani.
All right, it's enough. It's enough. You've said it, and I'm satisfied with that. Now, you know about Business Beyond Limits, right?
Yes.
And you're not surprised that Business Beyond Limits is suddenly there in the letter?
As I said, I handed it to Mr. Mohit Dargani. I did not follow up afterwards. So I don't know the date of the flight. I don't know the exact details of the flight. I did not pay for the flight. I did not sign the
I
contract.
did not ask you those questions, but you knew that you were trying to find out about the flights, and you knew that you were going to be charged $150,000
I was not going to be charged
all the way to
$150,000.
Dubai.
I'm not going on the flight. Why would I be charged for it?
All right. Okay, I just don't.
Mr. Chan, I just need you to be fair here. I already told, since the start, I've said the truth. And you're asking me things to speculate things. I've tried to
I'm not asking you to speculate. You were the one who said. You're the one who said. I did not put words in your mouth.
You asked me who is Morris Daniel. I said I don't know. Then you asked me to be offensive of what I think Morris Daniel is. Then I'm trying to.
I believe I might have made up his name, right? You just
To be honest, Mr. Chairman, you can ask me the thing I don't know. No, if I know, I will say. But if I don't know, I cannot say.
Also that you tend to raise your voice. You were very humble until I brought this letter up. You suddenly were flaring up. You're melting down. You're raising your voice, and you're agitated. Obviously, I can see that you're agitated, right?
Because you are saying, I felt that there was some. I already said since the start when you asked me about this flight that
You got agitated, right? You got angry because you got caught in the lie, right?
there was no lie in my statement. Not a word of my said is a lie.
The words speak for themselves that you made the inquiry and formally.
So, you
Then I asked you about Morris Dennis. You say, oh, he must just have made up. Morris Daniel.
because I handed to Mr. Mohit Dargani.
All right, okay. I'll leave you at that. Why would you use a fake name if your flight is innocent? Anyway, besides, I don't think you can get away with it when you book a flight unless you paid a lot of money, and you do have a lot of money. Maybe if it's $40,000, $50,000 is still a lot of money. Than the $140,000, which is $6.9 million. And the $50,000 is 2.5 million pesos, right? But anyway, let me go to Mr. Dergani. Mujit,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
well, did you make up the name?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Who is that?
Mr. Morris Daniel was the local person assigned to me by Gary Wong.
We have a Gary Wong and we can't find him. You don't have the information on Gary Wong up till now? There is a Morris Daniel. Who's this guy?
I also don't know Morris Daniel, as I just got his information from Gary Wong, and I asked Mr. Wong to have Morris Daniel be the point person.
You ask him. You talk to him, actually. Of course you did. He had to book a flight for you. Not every person can book a chartered flight from Davao to first to Dubai and then later on somebody had to make a decision. Oh, we're not going to wait for it. We have to leave already. Just book us somewhere where you can get a commercial flight. And the chosen area was Kuala Lumpur. So you knew Morris Daniel, right?
No, I don't know Morris Daniel personally, but
And how did you communicate with him then to book the flight?
I just spoke to him on WhatsApp.
You spoke to him on your WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Did you text him? Before you called him, you probably had to text him, right?
Yeah, just like an introduction that I was referred by Mr. Gary Wong to get in touch with you, etc.
All right, then we can look at that phone. Anyway, it's of no moment at the moment, but it might be later on relevant. Now, you use the words business beyond limits. Why?
They asked for a company name, so that's the one that I can think of.
Because you control that and you put your girlfriend there, right? And Miss Mago, right? And Miss Mago will do anything for you, right? Come on, Mujit, you're in enough trouble. Try and come back to the fold. Don't be a Darth Vader. The truth shall set you free.
No?
What do you think? What?
I don't remember.
Mojit, you want to change your mind and tell the truth finally? You have to know Morris Daniel.
So, Chairman, I already mentioned what I know, and I already gave.
Ask your friend, right? And he helped you.
Marine transcript.
After all, the plane was coming from Singapore. And Mr. Wang was in Singapore. So he arranged it. And then you have a name, the name of Morris Daniel, right? And then you use, again, was there an authorization from Better Business, Business Beyond Limits? I'm sorry, I'm used to BB. Better Business, Business Beyond Limits, authorizing you to charter a plane? Was there? Mujit? I don't enjoy this, Mujit. Believe me, I don't enjoy it.
No,
I don't
no,
enjoy having to say no to your mother, all right? I really feel for your mother. But try to come and see your way clear and come back to the truth. Might be easier. It will relieve your sister of the stress that you put her in. Tell the truth for a change. Come on, Mojit. You know, when I saw you before, I thought you were a good man. You look like a good man. I didn't even believe the stories of some of your friends who know you, who tell me. You pop champagne bottles when you were in a bar just to enjoy. Sprinkle champagne bottles all over the bar. I didn't even ask you about when Twinkle had her birthday. Did you go to Balasin Island? Chartered the plane again to go to Balasin Island? Did that happen? Mojit,
No, that did not happen.
are you sure? Don't start another lie. That your sister had a birthday party in Balasin Island and you brought people out there? Right?
Mr. Chairman, that never happened.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, but I'll have to extend another hearing and get parties to tell you who they are. What is rocks trading?
That's the one that Morris used because when Morris asked me first for a company name, I gave BBL, but I told him I'm not comfortable to use that either. So I told him, can he be the one to take care of the company? And he said yes. So I don't know Rox Trading either.
Somebody you don't know is able to do all this. He must be a CIA or a agent of the KGB in the old days who can fix things. You know that your story is very flimsy. You know that. Come on, Majid. Come clean. So where is Rox Trading located? And why do you know of it? Come on. Speak up.
As I mentioned, I don't know Rox Trading either.
Come on. We're not stupid here, you know. You just use Rox Trading from out of the blue. You don't know. And you suggested it to Morris. Come on.
As I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I asked Morris to provide the company name. So to
I found out.
somebody suggested it.
And where is Morris located? Where is Morris based?
I don't
see,
know, Mr. Chairman.
You're going to be push and push and push. And you're going to look stupid because it's like, you know, your clothes are being removed until finally, like Adam, when he ate of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, they were driven out naked. You don't know where Morris is from? And you let Morris decide? Rocks trading?
I trusted Gary.
Oh, you trust him. I thought you didn't know him.
I said I trusted Gary.
Oh, Gary. But you didn't know Gary either. You just met him in a bar. You expect the whole country to believe you that you trusted Gary? There's a long line of questions that shows that you're lying, you're tentative, you're what you call evasive, and that you're adjusting your answer to the question. What's the other word for it? Oh my God. So tired from all the things that we're facing in the country right now, including this major disaster. There's a word for it. You are concocting. You're reinventing the answers. Come on, Mohit, speak up. You used to be a good man. You could be a good man again. I don't think you're evil, but you're beginning to turn into the black. Sure, you're a fan of Star Wars, right? No answer? Morris could possibly. Is Morris in America, in Singapore, or Davao? Come on, Mojit. Be a credit to the Indian people here. I know a lot of very good Indian people. Don't paint yourself into that. Whether you like it or not. You know, I thank your mother for me, but I had to return that birthday Christmas cake that she sent to me. I don't really accept Christmas gifts from people I don't know, and I return it. Just as I returned somebody from Cagayan de Oro who sent me ham because they thought they were going to be part of an investigation. Ham ba? Oh, crabs. Crabs. Just somebody sent me a gift to help him in citizenship. I have all this recorded, Borit. But I sympathize with your mom. That's why God invented mothers, because God could not be around all the time. But mothers will always be there for you. Try to be a credit to your mother. I don't like to hurt your mother. Pick up and tell the truth once and for all. And let's get rid of this bad nightmare. Come on, Mohit, speak up. Everything that you've done got unraveled. You tried to escape, you got caught. Then you got caught, we found out who paid for the plane. And now you're saying a parcel of lies again. From Gary, whom you met in a bar, to Morris, whom you don't know. Come on, rocks trading. And you don't even have any authority from the company. Business Beyond Limits, where you put Grace Mago, and Sophia Custodio. Come on. And Sophia doesn't show up all the time. And now Rose Dono doesn't want to show up. And then Wei Xiong, your partner, doesn't want to show up. You see how it looks to us? One lie after the other. One lie magnified after the other. We didn't do the lies. Now your friend is also in trouble. Wang. Would you like to speak about it in private? But it'd be better if you just say it. Okay, I'll tell everything. You believe the lie that you're above the law. I'll ask you again. Where is Morris from? Don't even bother to ask. Where is Morris Daniel from?
I don't know where he's from, Your Honor.
So you just trusted him. You just trusted him to say rocks. I can't believe you don't know rocks. I'll give you two answers. There's a rocks trading in India, and you're Indian. And there's a rocks trading in Buhangin, Davao, JP Laurel Street. Which one is which? Do you have relations in India who own rocks trading? Baka pinahamak mo na naman uli yun. Or you have a friend who owns rocks trading. Because I'm going to call rocks trading from Davao and ask him to sue you because you're putting them in ill repute. Are you going to answer? Don't waste our time, please. Come on, Mohit. You know the gig is up.
No comment, Mr. Chairman.
No comment. No comment means you're evasive. Mr. Kimbo, may I ask you to invite rocks trading in Davao next time?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, rocks trading is not SE registered. We asked the Department of Trade and Industry if they are registered, and we're awaiting the reply. We've made our
Do they have a
follow-up.
name, a face?
None, sir, yet. None, sir. We will find out, sir.
I really
Just,
want to finish this investigation already, but it's really the president, it's really these lies that are dragging this investigation. Hindi naman kami. Mohit, by the way, please tell your mother I have nothing against her, and I pray for her, and I really sympathize with her. Okay? No answer. All right. We'll stop there for the escape from Davao phase of the investigation. I will now ask you a question. Is it not true that Lin Wei Xiong is the financial manager of Farmali? Mr. Mohit Dargani?
Based on the record, yes, because as I mentioned that, as in our previous hearings, I did not mention it, but it was mentioned that Michael Yang did help formally and acted as a guarantor.
I'm talking about Lin Wei Xiong. He's a financial manager. He's a friend of Michael Yang. He has a position in your company. Mohit Dargani is corporate secretary, and Lin Wei Xiong is financial manager. Now the cat is out of the bag. That's why he's been in Dubai all the time. That's why he's contracted a second COVID illness in Dubai. Come on, Mohit. You know the gig is up. Speak up. Tell the truth. Free yourself of this pestilence in your mind. You're young. How old are you? How old are you?
28, Mr. Chairman.
28. My gosh. You have a whole lifetime ahead of you and you can fix your life. Especially come out honorably here. There's still a chance to come out honorably, admit your errors, and maybe you can have a new life. I don't want to say this. If you feel your father failed you, don't let him tell you that. Tell yourself that. I will rectify myself. That's the beauty of man. He can reinvent himself. That's why there's confession, there's penance. So he's a financial manager, correct? He's the watchdog of Michael Yang. He looks after the money interest, right? Habangan, Mohit.
He was just placed as a financial manager for that particular.
Who placed him? Who placed him? Did you? Did you place him?
It
Did
was
you
the
place
board.
him? Who?
The board.
The board. Oh, that board again. Who are in the board?
Lincoln Ong, Wang Chuyen, and myself. My sister is not involved in any of the operations or transactions, so she
Again,
doesn't.
who is there? Lin Wei Xiong is in the board?
No, he's not.
Okay. Who are the other ones in the board? You yourself? Lincoln Ong?
Mr. Wang Chuyen,
Wang Suyen, the president. What is it taking you such a long time to say who's in the board?
I answered the question, Mr. Chairman.
No, you only answered Mr. Wang yourself. Sino ba?
I answered myself, Mr. Wong, Mr. Lincoln, and my sister. But she
Mr.
has
Lincoln. O, sabi mo, your sister has nothing to do with it. Binabawi mo naman ngayon. So, she's also in the board. Sino pa? That's 4. Diyan.
Mr. Garado left the company in 2019.
Garado left the company. Who replaced him?
Nobody replaced him, Your Honor.
Okay. So, Lincoln Ong, Moe Dargani, Twinkle Dargani as president, Wang Suyan. That's it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And you say that Mr. Lin Wei Shaw was appointed by the board to
Yes,
be the
Mr.
financial
Chairman.
manager?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just for
Who
that
nominated him?
extra.
Who nominated him?
I can't remember. That's almost 2 years
That's
ago.
convenient. You know, that's always a convenient answer. I can't remember. How can you not remember? You're dealing with a billion peso corporation. Financial manager, you can't remember? Was it Michael Young? Come on! Man up! Apat lang kayo. Twinkle, did Twinkle nominate him? Mr. Wang, did you nominate Mr. Lin Wei Xiong as a financial manager? Mr. Wang,
Mr. Chairman, I think I agree. I think what Mr. Mohit Dagani said is Mr. Michael Young acted as a guarantor for our finance for the suppliers that we will pay them after. So I believe that's
Chief Financial Officer.
why I think perhaps why Mr. Ling Wei Xiong was
the question is very simple, Mr. Wang. Who nominated Lin Wei Xiong? Financial manager is a very important position. Under the bank accounts. He handles how do we pay all these importers? Come on, Mr. Wang. What's your answer?
I think
The record will say that there's a long pause between questions and answers from both of you and Mr. Mojit Dargani, and I'm putting that on record. What's the answer?
I think that that's what Mr. Dagani said, that we have an obligation to pay back our suppliers after we receive out our collections, and therefore he was placed in there as a form of guarantor, so that when we receive the collections, we would pay back immediately.
And who nominated him is a question, my boy. Who
I
does he
don't-
represent?
Don't really know who he represents, but I believe he's just looking out for the interests of our suppliers.
Can you speak a little louder, please? Shall I show you the pictures? Pinakita niya na eh. At the beach. Everybody is there. I know many of those people there. Lin Wei Xiong is there. You're there. I'm sorry. Michael Yang, Alan Lim, alias Lin Wei Xiong. There's a there. Senator Bongo, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano is there. Who nominated them?
Mr. Chairman, I was not on that trip.
Okay, another picture. Oh. Is that Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, Mr. Wang?
Yes. Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Mr.
You know him, right?
Yes.
You know, who nominated him?
I'm not too sure who nominated him,
Not too sure. You're the president. Not too sure.
but I've not met him for a long time, since 20.
You've not met him for a long time. Another picture. He's with the president, huh? Oh, next. And Mr. Michael Young. Oh. There is a drug personality, not that one. Oh, there. Is he there? Lin Wei Xiong. Saan yan?
Mr.
Lin Wei Xiong is in the man at the right. Michael Young is in the middle.
I'm
Dennis
not,
Dizon, Foreign Undersecretary Manuel Antonio Tihanki are also in the picture.
Mr. Chairman, if you're asking me based on these pictures, do I think that...
No. Basically, I'm just saying that
Because I
he
can't-
must be very influential because you just don't appoint a financial manager without knowing who he is. Oh, it looks like very influential. He knows the president. He's all in the pictures, right?
Based on what you're showing me, yes.
Based on what I'm showing you, yes. So he was appointed because he was close to the powers that be in this country. Next picture, please.
As
Right? Is that your answer?
no, Mr. Chairman, my answer is same as Mr. Mohit Dagani, that in order to...
You know, I'm sorry I have to ask you these questions because you're all evasive. Next picture. Michael Yang again and Lin Wei Xiong with Senator Bongo. Next. Next picture.
I cannot comment on the relationship because I'm not
No, I'm just saying to all of you,
either of them.
Mr. Dargani, was he nominated based? I mean, you don't appoint a financial manager from out of the blue. Lincoln, do you remember who nominated Mr. Lin Wei Xiong? Huling-huli na kayo lahat. Sisinungaling pa kayo.
Mr. Chairman, as mentioned by Mr. Dargani, I think it's the board, and then it was years ago. I don't remember also, and then it's also a bank document. So I don't want to further incriminate ourselves, so I cannot comment on
You
it.
don't know what the word incriminate means. You're already incriminated whether you like it or not. You're incriminated by your cars. Where did you get the money to pay for your cars? You're incriminated by the fact that you are under the payroll of Mr. Michael Young. You're incriminated by the fact that you were with Michael Young when you see the president in private. Stop talking to me about self-incrimination. I've not asked you anything that will incriminate you. It is not incriminating to say who nominated Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, who doesn't seem to appear here. He's still in Dubai, who's married to Rose Nono Lim, who is very famous in the country today for having her garages suddenly give birth to cars. Expensive cars. O sasabihin na naman ni Presidente, sinisigawan ko kayo. Hindi, passion lang yan, passion. O, ayan, nandiyan kayong lahat. Hey, the gang's all here. In the picture of Parmali with the President, you were there, right, Lincoln?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Lin Wei Xiong was there, right?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Michael Young was there, right?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Wang was there, right?
Ano po yun, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Wang was there.
Yes, Mr. Wong was there also, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, the gang's all here. So who nominated Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, ang mahiwagang si Lin Wei Xiong? Di malaman kung drug pusher, di malaman kung talagang legitimate businessman. Ayun, papatakbo kayo ng negosyo, bigla kayo nagkakakontrata ng malalaki, ang lalaki ng mga kasama niyong tao, mga siga lahat ang kasama niyong tao, tapos hindi mo matandaan kung sino nag-recommend kay Lin Wei Xiong as financial manager? Yan ang magbabayad ng sweldo mo, di ba? Yan ang pipirma. Yan ang pipirma kung saan galing yung pera, saan ang bangko. Right, Mr. Abrea? Di ba yan ang trabaho ng financial manager, Mr. Abrea?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, ayan. Oh, ano pang gusto nyo? I-drawing ko na sa inyo. Hello? See? I'm like Mr. Wang. I get agitated too. I get passionate when I'm asking Wang different questions. He suddenly translates himself from a humble being into a very agitated person. I get agitated when I'm being lied to. Kaya na kayo. Yan ang nature of the beast. Can you submit to us, Mr. Dargari, the minutes of the meeting where Lin Wei Xiong was nominated as financial manager? Or are you going to say, I don't have access to the records again? We lost all the records. Can you imagine? This is a comedy of lies, of rackets. Unbelievable. In the whole history of this country, I've never seen a corporation get so much money. Ang laki-laki ng perang nakuha ninyo. Tapos wala kayong records, hindi nyo kilala kung saan nagagaling si Lin Wei Xiong. Ay, nako. Bayang makapangyarihan. I think all these questions speak for themselves. Unanswered questions. Am I going to expect an answer? Okay, I will leave this particular chapter. This one is a mysterious Lin Wei Xiong. Yung kanina escape from Davao. Yes, Senator Dillon, are you going to add to the gold chapter? Go ahead, please.
If you before you go to the next topic, I'd like to ask some questions on Mr. Abrea. I think we can get answers from Mr. Abrea so that I can solve some of your frustrations, Mr. Chairman. So is Mr. Abrea still around? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. He's there. He's there.
With the provision of the chairman. Mr. Abrea, can you put back on the screen what you originally showed to the public regarding the financial transactions of Farmally, the chart that you showed, and I would like to go through it one by one so that I can better understand it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we'll share the screen. Which slide, Mr. Chairman?
Anyway, there are not that many slides there. Let's start from the start so that the public can better understand what you're presenting to them with some detailed explanation, if you can. There you are. All right. The one of the things that I have been pounding on from the very start would be the financial statements of Farmally, which showed that they indeed had gross sales of roughly 7.3 billion, out of which they claim an inventory of 7.2 billion that they sold to PSDBM. Is that correct, sir? As presented in your chart?
Mr. Chairman, I did not hear Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I could not understand you. This is what you're showing here appears in the financial statements of Farmally. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, the purchases and the cash balance, yes. The payment from PSDBM, Mr. Chairman.
All right, yes. Let's concentrate on this. You showed here 3.2 billion Evermore and Acme. For my understanding, it would appear that Farmally purchased from Evermore and Acme merchandise worth 3.2 billion. Is that correct, sir?
From the record of BIR, Mr. Chairman, the 3.2 billion was declared as purchases.
That's correct. It was declared as purchases. And the items purchased were the ones sold to DBM. Does it indicate so? Which purchases?
So,
These 3.2 billion were purchased by Farmally
the
Pharmaceutical.
2.9, the 2.
I'm sorry, but the transmission is very bad.
The 2.9 billion, Mr. Chairman, the 2.9 billion was purchased from Evermore,
Yes,
which appears to be their source in their supplying to PSDBM, Mr. Chairman.
yes. It was purchased from Evermore.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, how much? 2 billion.
2.9 billion.
2.99 billion. All right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We tried to subpoena Evermore. Their address appearing in the records of the government is 16 Reynaldo, Tandang Sora, Quezon City. The return of our Senate sheriff is that this company is not found in the address given, and therefore it would appear that it is a fictitious address.
I cannot verify that, Mr. Chairman, because the list came from their submission to BIR, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Does it indicate also the taxes withheld from these purchases from Evermore and Acme?
Mr. Chairman, Farmally is a new company and they're not yet categorized as a top withholding agent, Mr. Chairman.
So we have no
They
way
did not withhold.
we have no way of knowing whether
Withhold.
I'm sorry?
They did not withhold taxes, Mr. Chairman, because they are a new company. They are a new corporation.
Is that that's not the fact that you're a new corporation, are you saying would excuse you or would discharge you from the duty of withholding value-added tax or income taxes?
Mr. Chairman, since Farmally is a new corporation, BIR has not yet classified them as a top withholding agent. Therefore, they have not withheld income tax or withholding tax from their income payment to Evermore and Acme, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, now, but okay. In any case, the Office of the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate, when we tried to serve the subpoena on Evermore with address at 16 Reynaldo Tandang Sora, said that the office address does not exist. Also, the name of the address of the partner of Evermore, named Teresa B. Niedre, whose address is 105 F. Legazpi Street, Ugong City, Pasig, or Pasig City, also was not, could not be found. Is it possible that these are fictitious names?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can validate it with SEC if they complied with the annual submission, Mr. Chairman, whether the corporation is still in operation or not, Mr. Chairman.
These are not corporations. These are partnerships. These are partnerships. Evermore and Acme are partnerships, and they have almost identical articles of partnership. They were incorporated. They submitted their articles of partnership at about the time that Pharmally was incorporated, and they were amended. The articles were amended almost with the same phraseology. Now, I am also concerned that about half of what appears to be the cost of sales are from unknown suppliers. Is it possible that these suppliers do not exist at all? You listen here.
Mr. Chairman, based on the submission of PAR, Pharmally did not disclose or declare other suppliers other than Evermore and Acme, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, how is that again?
Based on the submission to the BAR, Pharmally did not declare or submit any other suppliers other than Evermore and Acme, Mr. Chairman.
All right. They submitted no other name except Evermore and Acme, and they indicated that Evermore and Acme, that they purchased 3.2 billion from Evermore and Acme, and yet they claim a total inventory purchase of 3.2, and that is why you made a conclusion that these are unknown suppliers. Now,
yes, Mr. Chairman.
yes, all right. Just for the record, I will repeat for emphasis. Acme Marketing, which allegedly sold to pharmaceutical 3.2 billion, and Acme, which sold to Evermore, which sold approximately 2.99 billion, and
2.7 million for Acme.
2.7 billion from Acme, and
Million.
273 million from Acme, and 2.99 billion from Evermore Marketing and Supply Company. But can you flash again the chart that you showed? It's important. Ooh, okay, there you are. Please don't remove this.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. What was that?
All right, because I'm trying to make of record how mysterious this transaction is. They were paid according to their financial statements. I mean, Pharmally got 7.3 billion from PSDBM, purportedly for face masks, face shields, etc., which they sold to PSDBM. Now, these materials sold to PSDBM were purchased in turn from Evermore and Acme for
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
273 million, and Evermore Marketing and Supply Company 2.99 billion. That's one. Point number two. These are not corporations but partnerships. Number three, these companies do not exist, are not in the addresses they stated in the records of the SEC. The addresses for Evermore Marketing is 16 Reynaldo, Tandang Sora, Quezon City. That there is no such address, and the address does not exist. And also Acme Pinnacle, 170 Upper Banlat Street also does not exist. The names and addresses of the partners of this company who sold huge supplies. Evermore, a certain Teresa B. Niendre, 105 Legazpi Street, Ugong, Pasig City also does not exist. Also, a certain Melanie P. Busimi of 9637 Pililla Street, Rizal Village, Valenzuela, Makati, who is supposed also to be a partner. They are not in the addresses found. Now, let me ask Mr. Lincoln Ong.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. What, again, for the record, what was your position in your company, informally?
I'm a supply chain manager, Mr. Chairman.
You're a what?
Supply chain manager, Mr. Chairman.
Chain manager. As supply chain manager, you would, it was part of your duty to look for suppliers of materials which you would sell to PSDBM. Is that correct?
Yes, ano po?
Okay, I'll go direct to the point. Did you know Ever Marketing?
Mr. Chairman, the last time it was your birthday and then I already answered my question and then medyo nagalit po kayo sa akin. Kasi Mr. Chairman, these questions kasi leads to the BIR issues eh. And then si BIR po, hinahabol kami hanggang sa kulungan. Hindi ko na pwedeng mag-further comment. Huwag naman po sana kayo magalit ulit sa akin today, Mr. Chairman.
Alam mo, kaya naalam ng buong bansa na talagang may tinatago kayo. Simple lang ang tanong ko po, kilala nyo ba itong si Evermore Marketing?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I cannot further comment. Yun din po yung talagang advice po ng lawyers po namin. Huwag naman po kayo magalit sa akin.
Okay. Ngayon, paano nyo po, how did you come up with the figure of 7.3 billion as the cost of your sales of the cost of the supplies you provided PSDBM?
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned in several instances already na when it comes to yung mga figures, mga accounting records, I really cannot comment on it. Huwag naman po talaga kayo magalit sa akin, Mr. Chairman.
Because you cannot comment on it because?
Kasi po, yung sabi ko nga po, hanggang sa, grabe po yung BIR, hanggang sa kulungan, umaabot talaga yung letter nila. Hanggang sa detention, umaabot yung letter nila.
Yes. So,
Yun po talaga advice ng lawyers namin na stop incriminating ourselves.
Alright. Now, okay, itong si Mr. Dargani. Mr. Dargani, you hold the position of treasurer. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So, did you pay for the supplies which Evermore provided pharmaceuticals?
Whatever's on the record, we have paid.
Sorry, sir.
Whatever's on record, we have paid.
Okay, so the record and your submissions to the BIR indicate that you paid 2.99 2,990 million to Ever Marketing and Supply Company. Do you know this company?
I don't know them personally, Your Honor.
But you made payments to them.
The company made payments to
Yes,
them.
I mean, the company made payments to them. Is that correct? Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And you signed the checks, I assume, for this amount. Mr. Durgani, you remember making this payment?
I signed checks, but I don't remember all the checks that I've signed, Your Honor.
Now, the submissions to the BIR indicate that while you asserted that you purchased from suppliers over 7.3 billion, which supplies you sold to PSDBM, it would appear that you can only name Evermore and Acme as the suppliers. There were no other suppliers indicated in your submissions to the BIR. May we know why this is so? Bakit po walang ibang suppliers na nakalagay doon sa inyong submission sa BIR except Evermore and Acme? Can you explain this?
Sorry, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, I cannot explain as to why that's the only thing that shows up in the BIR system.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What I mentioned is I'm not sure why that's the only companies appearing in the BIR system.
That is your submission to the BIR, not appearing in the BIR system. That you could only specify Evermore and Acme as your suppliers. That is why there is a question raised by Mr. Abrea that there appears to be 3.5 billion from unknown suppliers, because you did not indicate who the suppliers are, and yet this appears to be part of the supplies which you sold to PSDBM. So this is from your own submission, if I get the submission of Mr. Abrea correctly. How do you explain this?
From my recollection, I remember our accountant, our outsourced accountant, mentioned before that we have given other lists as well. And we are also surprised as to why the BIR only has these two companies.
Well, because from what appears in the BIR records, we cannot help but come to the conclusion that these are fictitious sales, because Evermore cannot be found in the address they stated. The partners who appear to be partners in the Evermore, in the business, cannot be found in the addresses. The same with Acme, and you have 3.5 billion that cannot be accounted for. So you cannot blame the committee and the Senate if we come to a conclusion that these are fictitious sales, fictitious purchases. And if these are fictitious purchases, you even cheated on your income tax payments. All of the 7.3 billion that you got from the PSDBM should be considered all as income, not only 100 million as it is being made to appear. Can that conclusion be supported, Mr. Abrea, on the basis of what you see?
Mr. Chairman, because they claim it as deductible expenses, Mr. Chairman.
And if they cannot show proof that indeed these are deductible expenses, meaning if Evermore is, the existence of Evermore is even doubtful, and you say 3.5 billion are unknown suppliers. Is it possible that all of this are fraudulent claims for deduction?
Mr. Chairman, according to the rules of our tax code, the burden of proof is on the taxpayers who are claiming the deductions, Mr. Chairman. Therefore, if they cannot show proof that there was really a legitimate purchase with supporting documents, then yes, Mr. Chairman, you are correct on your conclusion.
And at this point, Mr. Dargani, Lincoln Ong, you will refuse to show us any documents in support of these deductions you claim in your financial statements and in your income tax return. Is that correct? Yes, I'm asking a question. At this point, you would refuse to show us any documents, and you have refused to show this committee, and you refuse to answer this committee or any question relative to what appears as the cost of sales in your financial statements.
Mr. Chairman, I always try to answer this committee's question as to other issues. I really have to talk to our lawyers to refrain from incriminating ourselves. And then, yun lang po, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Dargani, would you have the same answer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll have the same answer as Mr. Ong.
All right. Who are your auditors again? Is for the record? Because I'll ask questions from the auditor. Who are your auditors who prepared your financial statements?
Ms. Iluminada Sebial.
Okay.
Our outsourced accountant is Mr. Jeff Mariano.
Jeff, okay. 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 Can I first ask Iluminada Sebial again? She's still around, I assume. Miss Sebial, are you around?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Yes. Did you prepare the income tax return of family?
No, Mr. Chairman, who prepared the financial statements?
You
is
prepared
Jeff
the financial statements. Who prepared the income tax return?
Jeff Mariano also.
Okay, Jeff Mariano, you're around?
Here po, Mr. Chairman.
All right, now, our resource person, Mr. Mon Abrea, said that in his findings, 3.5 billion, which is claimed as a deduction, are from unknown suppliers. Did you examine this purchases made by Family Pharmaceutical in the course of your preparation of the income tax return?
Examine, no, sir.
Huh?
On the word, sir, no. Examine po, hindi. However, we just relied on what documents are available.
Okay. On what basis did you claim, did you indicate that 7.3 billion were purchases made by family in the course of their doing business with PSDBM? What documents did you use?
Supplier invoices po.
Supplier,
Invoices.
I'm sorry?
Supplier invoices.
Supplier invoices. Did you see the supplier invoices for Evermore and Acme? What about for the remaining three? What about for the remaining three? The other 3.5 billion, or the balance between what Evermore invoices and the total inventory purchased? Did you also see them?
Yes, sir. I recall there were a lot more suppliers than only these gathered from BIR.
Can you recall which suppliers are this?
No, sir. Some of which kasi po is Chinese names eh. So yung
Ano?
some of them po kasi are Chinese, so mahirap pong kabisaduhin, sir.
Tinanong mo ba sila si Mohit Dargani or si Lincoln Ong on these documents?
Tinanong, sir, no need na po, sir, kasi we already have it on hand during then.
Well, I'm sorry?
During then, sir, when we summarize and compile the documents, everything was written, sir.
Okay. Well, where are these documents now? Did you have copies of them?
No po, sir.
Sorry?
None, sir, none.
No, you didn't.
None.
Why?
Sir, no, in practice po kasi, no, pag manual bookkeeping po, these are very high volume documents na impractical po for us outsourced bookkeepers to create a copy, whereas pwede naman po namin i-access yon on-site.
Okay. But in the age of technology, you need not be in possession of the physical documents, but through electronics, you can have a file. Did you have a file of this?
As to the current digital age, sir, yes, that's correct. However po, sir, there are case-to-case po, sir, yung process whether a certain company would like hard copy, another company would like it in digital. So in the case po kasi of Farmally, they had it in hard copy, sir.
In the case of Farmally, how was it done?
Hard copies po.
Hard copies, walang electronic.
What we gathered, sir, were all hard.
So you examined all these hard copies. I remember, Mr. Mariano, I'm reminding you, you are under oath.
Yes po, sir.
Okay. So did you see copies, physical copies of these invoices?
Yes po, sir.
But you could not recall any of them.
Again, sir, yung the names po kasi are Chinese sounding. So that's what makes it difficult for me po to recall yung Chinese names.
What about Miss Sibyal? Did you have an opportunity to examine Evermore invoices, which is 2.99 billion? Miss Sibyal?
No, Mr. Chairman.
You did not examine them. Hindi niyo po nakita itong mga invoices ng Evermore?
Hindi po. Listahan lang po ang binigay sa akin nung kaya hindi ko na po naisend.
Listahan lang, walang mga invoices.
Opo.
So, okay. Ito pong, maliban po sa Evermore and Acme na 2.99, almost 2.99 billion and Acme of over 700 million. Mayroon po pang ibang listahan na pinakita sa iyo?
Hindi ko na po natatandaan mo, Mr. Chairman eh.
Pero ang malaala mo lang, puro lang listahan ang pinakita sa iyo.
Opo.
Hindi ba tungkulin po ninyo na tingnan naman kung totoo itong listahan na pinapakita sa inyo naging base ng audited financial statements?
Basta nag-base lang po ako sa ibinigay na lang pong listahan.
Okay. Sino nagbigay sa inyo ng listahan?
Ang Farmally po.
Oo, pero ang Farmally, hindi tao yan eh. Sino sa Farmally ang magbigay sa inyo ng listahan? Miss Iluminada, Sino
Yes,
po sa family ang nagbigay sa inyo ng listahan?
Ali po si Mr. Si Mr. Jeff Mariano po.
Si Mr. Jeff Mariano. Pinakita sa iyo ni Mr. Jeff Mariano yung listahan.
Opo.
Listahan lang, walang mga sales invoice.
Listahan lang po.
Listahan lang.
The practices.
Si Mr. Abria, inyo,
Mr. Chairman.
yes. Can you please, Mr. Abria, you're not.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Can you comment on the way this audit was, I mean, the financial statements and the income tax return were prepared, particularly on the deductions, on the basis of the statements of these two members of your profession?
Mr. Chairman, base po sa financial reporting standards, dapat po na-examine or na-audit po ng auditor or ni Ms. Sabial lahat po ng supporting documents. At base naman po sa obligasyon o responsibilidad nung nag-prepare ng financial statements at nag-prepare ng mga tax returns at yung mga schedules, dapat po ito po ay lahat base din sa mga supporting documents, mga valid supporting documents, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jeff Mariano, sino po ang kausap niyo sa family tungkol sa mga invoice, mga suppliers invoice?
Sometimes po si Miss Crisel at other times
Sino po? Sino?
at times po sir si Miss Crisel Mago, and there are sometimes si Mr. Mohit Terganin po.
It's not very clear. Pakiulit lang po, dahan-dahan. Sino po ang kausap niyo sa family na siyang nagsasabi kung ano yung mga suppliers invoice na dapat isama sa financial statements? Sino po?
Sir, iyan ko lang po, qualify ko lang po. We just get kay Mr. Dargani po, no? Pero whether or not dapat isama, pag binigay lang po sa amin, sinasama po namin lahat.
You just answer my question. Si Mohit Dargani ang nagbibigay sa iyo ng mga listahan.
Yung mga documents po, sir.
Ng mga documents. Anong document kasama ang listahan ng suppliers?
Bali sir, kami na po yung naglilista.
Pakisagot lang. Si Mr. Dargani ba ang nagbigay sa inyo ng listahan ng mga suppliers?
No sir, no po.
Ha?
Hindi po,
Ano?
hindi po. Listahan sir, hindi po.
Saan niyo po nakuha ang listahan?
Hindi sir, bali ang nangyari po, nakuha namin yung mga hard copy and then inilista po namin sa libro.
Nakuha niyo yung mga hard copies at ang inilista niyo sa libro. Saan niyo nakuha yung mga hard copies?
Sa office po nila sir.
Sa office nila. Sino sa office nila ang may hawak nito mga hard copies na ito?
Under Sir Mohit po.
Sino?
Sir Mohit. Mohit Dargani.
Si Mr. Dargani.
Yes sir.
Ang may hawak ng mga dokumento.
To clarify lang sir, under his direction po kasi siya po yung treasurer.
Upon his direction dahil siya ang treasurer.
Apo, technically sir nasa cabinet po siya. So
Okay. So siya ang nagsasabi kung ano ang dapat ilagay doon sa financial statements, particularly on the deductions from the gross income. Tama po ba yun?
Well, hindi niya, sir, to clarify lang, sir, no, hindi po niya sinasabi. He just gives us the documents and then we summarize and yun na po yung report.
He gives you the documents,
Yes, sir.
and then
And then from there, we summarize and create the report.
you summarize it.
Yes po.
Did you show these documents to Ms. Sibial to provide support for the entries that she made in the financial statements?
No, Mr. Chairman.
What? No.
Hindi po, hindi po.
Bakit?
Hindi naman po niya hiningi, sir.
Ano?
Hindi po niya hiningi.
Hindi niya hiningi, kaya hindi mo binigay.
Yes po.
Pero alam mo naman na kailangan makita ito ng auditor.
Yes, sir. Also, sir, no, to give light lang po on this, no, ang process po kasi ng audit, ang manghihingi po, sir, would be the auditor. Pipiliin lang po niya yan.
So kasalanan ni Ms. Sibial kung bakit nagkabuhol-buhol itong inyong reporting. Hindi niya hiningi ang bilang auditor, hindi niya hiningi yung mga support documents. Ganun bang ibig mong sabihin?
Sir, ang sinasabi ko lang po is hindi ko po ibinigay kasi hindi naman po hiningi.
Kaya nga hindi niya hiningi. O sige, Ms. Sibial, bakit hindi mo hiningi yung mga supporting documents like supplier's invoice?
Ang hiningi ko lang nga po, listahan.
Bakit listahan ang hiningi mo? Hindi ba tungkulin mo na tingnan yung mga supporting documents ng listahan? Ang lista na ibinigay sa inyo? Alam niyo po, kaya kami nagtatanong ng ganito. Dahil sa mukhang may mga tinatago kayo lahat eh. You tend to protect the Darganes, you tend to protect Lincoln Ong, and whoever is involved here. Because very simple questions. I'm not an accountant, but logic tells me that when you prepare an audited financial statement, you look at the supporting documents. Eh dito, sinabi ni Jeff Mariano, hindi mo raw hiningi. At sabi ni Jeff Mariano, listahan lang ang binigay sa iyo. Of course, he is now trying to shield the Darganis and say, parang siya lang ang gumawa nito. Because it would appear that these transactions, there were invoices that made it appear that purchases were made. Could not be produced. The suppliers' addresses were non-existent. Kaya po hindi mo namin maiwasan. Ako, hindi ko maiwasan na isipin na ito yung mga fictitious transactions at walang binenta doon sa PSDBM dahil wala namang inventaryong dumating. Pwede po ba yun? Hindi nyo nakita yung invoices. Iluminada Ms. Sibial? Hindi nyo po nakita yung supplier's invoice. Kaya pwedeng non-existent itong mga alleged purchases na ito.
Hindi po.
Ano?
Hindi ko po nakita po. Listahan lang nga po ang nakita.
Kaya nga po, listahan lang. At posible na walang supplier's invoice talaga. Kasi listahan lang ang nakita mo. Pwede po ba yun? Okay, so just for the record, the witness could not answer the questions that we have raised. Mr. Abrea, can you give us an expert opinion on the validity of this of the financial statements and the income tax return from the point of view of the support documents that we cannot see or that are not available?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
dapat po lahat ng kinlim na expenses, Mr. Chairman, particularly yung purchases, sa pagpe-prepare pa lang po ng financial statements at tax returns, dapat po ito ay nasubmit din sa BIR. Kaya po pinagbasihan natin yung submission ng BIR, yung summary list of purchases and importations. Kasi po hindi po tayo pwede mag-claim ng expenses, particularly po yung purchases, kung wala pong supporting documents. Ngayon po, kung may supporting documents naman po yun o wala, yun naman po trabaho ng auditor para masigurado na yung sinabit sa BIR at kinlaim na deductions ay tama. Maliban na lamang po during BIR audit, which sa pagkakaalam ko po ay ino-audit na sila ni BIR, hihingin din po ulit ni BIR yon kung talaga pong yung mga summary list of purchases at importation ay may valid na supporting documents. Kaya lang nga po, base po sa mga dokumento na pinag-aralan natin at nasumite ng komite, lumalabas po na talagang may 3.5 billion sa kanilang purchases, ang hindi naman po ni-report sa BIR, pero po kinlaim sa kanilang financial statements, na-report sa kanilang financial statements, Mr. Chairman. Base naman, doon naman po sa pagpe-prepare ng financial statements bago po i-audit, kung tama po ang sinabi ni Mr. Jeff Mariano na ito naman po ay base sa lahat ng suppliers invoices at mga resibo, dapat po meron po talaga tayong source document o listahan na sino-sino po yung mga suppliers na binayaran at kung tutuusin po, hindi naman po kailangang i-secure lahat po yung actual documents kung talaga pong nakita naman niya. Pero dapat po kasi may working paper po, lalo na yung auditor, pagdating po dun sa pagbabalanse at pag-audit ng FS. So, para po sa, base po sa mga standards, parehas po may responsibilidad ang nag-prepare ng FS at yung nag-audit ng FS, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Jeff, can you submit to us your working papers in which you utilized or which you used in preparing the income tax return? Trial balance and all?
Mr. Chairman, ang ginamit lang po namin in preparation of the FS and ITR is yung books lang po.
Yung alon? Yung alin?
Yung libro po, sir.
Yung libro. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Nasaan ito mga libro ngayon?
It's with Pharmaly's office po, sir. Sa office po na Pharmaly.
Mr. Ong, can you submit to us these books?
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned in the previous hearing, matagal na po ako nakakulong. Hindi ko po talaga alam saan yung mga papeles na yan. Ang tagal na po ako nakakulong mag-performance na po. I have no idea.
Yes. Kaya ka nakakulong kasi ayaw mong sabihin, ayaw mong sagutin ang mga tanong ng komite at base doon sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema, habang hindi mo kami sinasagot, may kapangyarihan kami ikulong ka. Naintindihan mo po ba yun? Under the decisions of the Supreme Court, so long as you refuse to answer valid questions raised to you, and so long as you refuse to supply the documents in your possession which are needed in this investigation, we have the authority to continue to order your detention. In any case, yes. Yes, you want to say something?
Mr. Chairman, no po. Sabihin ko sana, kausapin ko rin ulit yung lawyer ko kasi I cannot really comment on anything. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Hindi po pinagbabawal na kausapin mo ang abogado mo. Kausapin mo. Baka sakali kung makausap mo at baka sakali kung sagutin niyo kami, baka po hindi na kayo i-detain. Because that is the only basis of the detention that you are now undergoing. It's the fact that you refuse to answer questions of this committee. And ako mismo, mga tinatanong ko, lihiti mo naman po mga tanong ito eh. Gusto namin malaman ano ang katotohanan. Wala pa naman kayong kasong kriminal, hindi po ba? Wala pang naisasampa sa inyo.
Meron po yata kayong report last time. Ang dami niyo pong kaso na isasampa sa amin. As far as I can remember.
Sino nagsampa?
Parang meron po kayong prelim report eh. I cannot remember. Ayun nga po, as per advice of our counsel, stop incriminating ourselves.
Mr. Lincoln Ong, I have not mentioned in any hearing that there are criminal cases filed against you. I am not aware of any, and therefore I could not have mentioned it. You have served with any notice of hearing in any criminal case. Have you been, is that correct?
So far wala pa po, pero nakakulong na po ako.
So far, wala pa. So, a claim mo that you will incriminate yourself, that's not, is not really based on any criminal case filed against you, but simply on the basis of your fear that it can incriminate you. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, baka pwede po ulitin yung tanong, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, liwanagin ko. Wala kayo hinaharap na kaso ngayon.
Tama po, pero nakakulong na po ako.
Sorry?
Tama po, wala po ako hinaharap na kaso, pero nakakulong na po ako.
Nakakulong kayo dahil ayaw yung sugatin ang tanong namin. Liwanagin po natin yan. Yan po ay sang-ayon sa ating batas at sang-ayon sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Ngayon, kung kausapin mo ang abogado mo at malaya kang kausapin ang abogado mo, pwede mo ba sa kanyang tanungin kung itong mga tanong namin ay pwede mong sagutin? Wala namang kaso ngayon.
Mr. Chairman, to answer your question kanina, wala talaga sa akin ng dokumento. So, hindi ko rin talaga maibigay sa iyo kahit gusto ko talaga, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, wala man naman po gustong magpakulong sa Senado eh. Kung kaya ko lang sagutin, sana po sinagot ko na. Kung kaya ko po ibigay, sana binigay ko na po. Kasi tagal-tagal ko na pong nakakulong dito, Mr. Chairman.
Sino may hawak itong mga dokumentong ito?
Mr. Chairman, 4 months na po ako nakakulong. So 4 months na akong isolated from outside world. I really don't know, Mr. Chairman. Kung alam ko lang po, sana po sinabi ko na po.
Mr. Nargani, sino may hawak itong mga dokumentong ito? Who holds these documents?
Mr. Chairman, as mentioned, I also don't know as I left the country in August. So I don't know where these documents are. And our office lease has also expired. So I don't know. The office is no longer existent as well.
You know, Mr. Nargani, do you realize that you have to produce these documents anyway in the investigation of the BIR? Otherwise, these deductions will not be allowed, and you'll be taxed on the entire 7.3 billion that you receive from the from PSDBM.
I'm aware of that, and when then we will answer it in the proper forum.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have again asked these questions because I thought that I will not get frustrated. I have a wrong, I'm sorry, but the same answers we get, so I assume the same legal situation that Mr. Dargani and Mr. Ong will be in. They will continue to be under detention until these answers are made to the committee and the documents are produced.
Bakit raw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Dillon, for your very succinct. I was going to ask these questions because really the external auditor has a lot to answer. And you have really opened up all those questions earlier. And now we have the answer that they really have not done their work. Precisely because they cannot show their work because they will all be penalized for it. Now, let me just go, with your permission, to Twinkle Dargani. Ms. Twinkle, are you there?
Good afternoon, your chairman.
Good afternoon, Twinkle. I hope you're well. I know you're having anxiety attacks. Relax. I had anxiety attacks when I was removed from office in 1986 because my people were being harassed, but I got over it, and people got over it. That's part and parcel of the modern times. But we are taking care of you. We're not going to let something happen to you. But let me just say this. Now, I know that you're in this situation because relations you just followed. You're the president of the corporation, right? Acting president, because Mr. Wang went to Singapore, correct?
Yes, I was the temporary substitute last year.
Last year, and that was including the time when you Parvali started buying, selling all these products to PSDBM, correct? But February, March, April, May, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, last year. I can't remember the exact date.
You have to remember because you're president.
Your Honor, I'm not involved with the transactions, so I cannot remember exact dates.
You were not involved personally, but Parmali was. All right. Parmali supplied all these supposedly all these billions of pesos to PSDBM. Now I have a
Yes, that
simple
was
question.
Parmali, not me. I'm not involved.
You cannot not be involved. First, abuse your mind about that. You were the president of the corporation, and under the law, you are the one that makes the president. You have to know that you have responsibilities as president, and simply by saying it will not make it go away. I hope I'm making myself very clear, because you're looking at fake news or a fake hope or a false hope. I hope I'm very clear about that. Whatever your brother says or anybody says, the president, corporate secretary, all of you are responsible. Now you can cooperate with us, which means that whoever is going to make the prosecution, which eventually will come, can take that into consideration in your favor. Now let me ask you, because I've asked all your members of the board of directors of Parmali, very simple question. Who nominated Mr. Lin Wei Xiong as financial manager of the corporation? I've asked Mr. Wang, I've asked Lincoln, I've asked Mohit, I've asked, now I'm asking you. Who nominated him in the board to become financial manager?
I don't know, Your Honor. I know nothing.
I cannot accept that answer. I'm sorry. Cannot say you know nothing. You are the recipient of a nice car from your brother, and you cannot say you don't know anything. Obviously, you have to ask saan magaling ang pera niya. I don't want to go into that. I don't want to stress you any further. I'm just asking a very simple question. Napakadali ang tanong ko. You understand Tagalog, right?
Opo.
Okay, good. Alam mo na ikaw ang presidente, alam mo na bago ma-nominate ang isang tao bilang financial manager, which na napakahalagang posisyon, humahawak ng pera, humahawak ng affairs of the corporation, nagbabayad, nag-a-approve na babayaran ng korporasyon, at kung anong binibili ng korporasyon. Lin Wei Xiong suddenly appeared as financial manager. And I have the document to prove that. Now, sino, nung nagbo-board meeting ba kayo, ni-nominate ba yan ang kahit na sino? Kahit sino dyan ang nag-nominate? Please cooperate. Twinkle, I really don't have anything against you except that, you have to answer for that. especially if you don't cooperate. Makisama ka na, hindi makisama, makiisa ka na sa pagharap ng katotohanan. Anyway,
Your Honor, I'm cooperating.
Yes? What is
Hindi ko
it?
po alam.
Hindi mo alam. You know, ang commission ng offense ay nangyayari dahil ikaw ang gumawa o pabaya ka. Sinabi mo hindi mo alam, pabaya ka. So kasama ka pa rin sa offense. I hope naintindihan mo yan. Hindi pwede sabihin hindi ko alam. Yes, Senator Dillon, you want to say something?
Intervene. Mr. Duhit Dargani was the corporate secretary at that time. Is that
Yes.
a correct recollection? Do you confirm that, Mr. Dargani, you were the corporate secretary?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
As part of your duty as corporate secretary, you prepared the minutes for a particular board meeting. Is that correct?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did not get the question.
As corporate secretary, it is your duty to prepare the minutes of as to what had happened in a particular board meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm aware of that duty.
You're aware of that duty. In this particular board meeting, where Mr. Lane Wei Xiong was elected as a financial manager, do you have the minutes of the meeting for that when that election took place?
We'll have to check all the documents. It's probably with the rest of the documents as well.
Do you recall you have complied with your duties and therefore these minutes should be on file?
Yes, it should be on file. I agree.
Where is the file? You don't know.
That's what I said a while ago. Since August, I've been out of the country, so I really don't know where these documents are.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dillon, thank you, Senator Dillon. I actually was headed that way. Mr. Dargani, I will show you a document. All right? And I will flash it on the board, and sure, Secretary, Senator Dillon will follow this, and we understand it being both lawyers. As a corporate secretary, you craft the minutes and you make the necessary documents official, right? You understand that, Mohit? Naintindihan mo yan, di ba?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Kaya nga, mahirap yung ayaw mo pa magsabi ng katotohanan. Ang nakalagay dito, ang petsa nito ay sandali, titingnan ko lang yung petsa, ha? 22 May 2020. Alright? Ang umarap kayo sa notary public, then nagkaroon kayo ng sa RTC. Sa board meeting na ito, at ito ay pinanotaryohan nyo sa notarial register ni Feliciana Belvidad. Okay? At ang sinasabi nito, babasahin ko sa iyo, ayan, nakikita mo, lakihan nyo ay Mohit C. Dargani. Pwede ba lakihan yan? Of legal age, Filipino, with postal address at Unit 8, 22nd floor, Fort Victoria Tower, B or 8th Avenue, blah, blah, blah. Hindi ko mabasa masyado, but anyway, nakikita. Yan. Basahin natin. After having been duly sworn to depose, say, and state and certify that I am the duly elected and incumbent corporate secretary of Farmali Pharmaceutical Corporation, duly organized and existing under by virtue of the laws of the Philippines with principal address at Fort Victoria Tower B, 5th Avenue, 8th Avenue, 8th ba yun o 5th? Corner 23rd, 5th Rizal Drive, BGC, Fort Bonifacio. 2. At the meeting of the Board of Directors, isang meeting ng Board of Directors na tinakdang tawagin at ginawa noong May 19, 2020 na may quorum na naandun nung panahon na yon, can you acted to, was present and acted throughout the following resolutions were unanimously adopted and recorded. In adoption at record ng mga resolution na sumusunod in the minute book of the corporation kept by me and are in accord with and pursuant to the charter and bylaws of the corporation and are now in full force and effect to it. Resolved that Asia United Bank and or any of its branches be as it is hereby is designated depository bank of the corporation, and the officers, employees, and agents of the corporation be and hereby are, and each of them hereby is authorized to deposit any of its funds in said bank, and said bank is hereby authorized to pay in cash or otherwise honor and charge to this corporation any and all checks, bills of exchange, orders, or other instruments for the payment of money or withdrawal of funds, including those which may cause overdraft when signed, made, drawn, accepted, or endorsed on behalf of or in the name of the corporation or any two of the following officers. Name: Mohit Dargani, Corporate Secretary, Board of Treasurer, Board Treasurer, Executive Director. Lim Wei Xiong, Financial Manager. Nabasa mo? Mohit, nabasa mo?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, nagpapatunay yan, alam mo. Resolve further that any two of the following officers be as here, they are hereby authorized to apply, negotiate to, and obtain credit facilities. Mangungutang pa sila with Asia United Bank in each amount as the corporation may deem necessary under such terms and conditions as may be approved by said bank, including the renewal, extension, and or increases thereof, and so to make and deliver notes, drafts, acceptances, waivers, including but not limited to the secrecy of bank deposits. Wow! Kayo pala pwede mag-waiver, no? Agreements and any other obligations of this corporation in the form satisfactory to said bank and a security therefrom to assign and mortgage, pledge, or otherwise encumber corporate assets, receivables, deposits, contract rights, and equipment now held or may be liable by belonging to this corporation and acceptable. Name: Mohit Dargani, Lim Wei Xiong, Financial Manager. Mohit Dargani, Corporate Secretary. Resolve further that any one of the following officers of the corporation and whose signature appear hereon: Mohit Dargani, Corporate Secretary. Lim Wei Xiong, Financial Manager, is hereby authorized to apply for and access the corporation's account through the bank's electronic banking services such as internet banking and mobile banking. Hindi ko na mabasa. Taas lang. Sino man may hawak? Anyway, that's enough. Alright? Ayan o, nakalagay. O, asan tayo? Mobile banking systems in as far as the following transactions are concerned, thereby waiving the dual signature. Hindi na kailangan dual signature, Requirement for corporate account, account history inquiry, account balances inquiry. Resolve finally that all foregoing authorities shall remain in full force and effect. This is a very, very specific authorization, Hindi lang ikaw. Pwede ikaw o pwede siya, gagawin niya lahat ng kailangan gawin. Alright? And effect, ito in full force and effect unless revoked by a subsequent certification from the corporate secretary, namely you, duly notarized and actually received by the bank at his office wherein the accounts of the corporation are then maintained, setting forth a resolution to that effect, certified to have been adopted by the board of directors of the corporation, provided that such subsequent certification shall not be effective with respect to any exercise of any of the foregoing authorities granted herein prior to the receipt thereof, nor with respect to any checks or other instruments for the payment of money or withdrawal of funds dated prior to the date of such certification but presented to the bank after receipt of the same. Further, the bank is hereby authorized at all times to rely upon the latest certification received by it when so certified by the corporate secretary of the corporation. The corporation shall hold the bank free and harmless from any liability or claim arising from the bank's reliance on said written notice of certification. I further certify that the above-mentioned persons designated as officers of this corporation have been duly elected. Sabi ko, kaya tinatanong ko sila nag-nominate in accordance with the bylaws and now hold the position opposite their respective names, and that the signatures appearing hereon are with his or their authentic official signatures. In witness hereof, I hereby affix my signature this 19th day of May in BGC, Taguig City. Signed, Corporate Secretary Mojit Dargani. Ikaw yon. 22 May 2020, Makati City, Attorney Raymond R.A. Ramos Commission, Notary Public for Makati City until December 31, 2020. Now I can bring Mr. Ramos here if need be. Kung magsisinungaling ka pa. Certified true copy, Records Office, Notarial Section, December 2, 2021. Signed, Feliciana Servidad. Now, you obviously know, alam mo, Mr. Dargani, kung sino nag-nominate. Nakapirma ka dyan. Buong kaluluwa mo, nakapirma dyan. Ano sasabihin mo ngayon? Hindi mo pa rin alam? Ano sagot mo?
As I said earlier, I remembered.
Please speak louder.
As I said earlier, I remember we elected Lin Wei Xiong, but as to the nomination, I really don't remember, Your Honor.
You voted for him, right? Unanimously yan eh.
It was a board unanimous decision.
You voted for him, correct?
Yes,
Yes
I
or
was
no?
one vote.
All right. Now, I go back to your sister. Twinkle Dargani. You voted for him, right? Or Mr. Lin Wei Xiong? Twinkle?
Yes, sir. I was just made to sign.
You were made to sign. By whom? By your brother? Yes or
By
no?
the board. By the board.
Who in the board? You know, you're making it uncomfortable for yourself. Who in the board?
My
Your
brother.
brother has obviously high moral authority over you. Did all of them make you sign?
No, just my brother.
Just your brother. All right. Now, thank you. Now, Lincoln Ong,
Yes
you
po,
vote for
Mr.
this?
Chairman.
did you vote for this, Lincoln?
Yes po.
All right. What about you, Wang Suyan? Did you vote for this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if there is, I'm sure.
Now, earlier, Mr. Wang, you said something to this effect. I'm trying to recall. I'm trying to get the TSN. You just said that about 45 minutes ago. You said that he was nominated perhaps because you borrow money from Michael Young, and therefore he represents Michael Young's interest in the corporation. Is that correct? That's what you said just a while ago.
I believe is as what I said is, if I can say it again, it's
You believe that was what you said,
we
right?
we had business dealings with suppliers from Michael Young, and Michael Young acted as a former guarantor, and therefore when we receive our funds, we will pay back immediately, and therefore I believe Mr. Lin was voted in to safeguard that interest and that guarantee.
You believe that Lin Wei Xiong was to make sure that he guarantees the payment of Mr. Michael Young, correct? Words to that effect.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes or no? Yes, right? Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So, in effect, Michael Young was really part and parcel of our Bali. That is the conclusion. I don't know what the conclusion of Mr. Delones as a lawyer, he was able to get into the board through Mr. Lin Wei Xiong.
Mr. Lin Wei-xiong is not a board member.
No, he was able to get that appointment from Mr. Lin Wei Xiong because of the, sorry, I correct myself, because of the influence done because Mr. Yang had money, was lending you money, or etc. And then, in order to be sure that Mr. Yang was properly paid, Mr. Lin Wei Xiong was appointed as financial manager. Would that be a right conclusion from what you said?
I
Yes,
believe
of course.
for
That's
the-
what you said.
For the
So I
purpose,
believe so.
for the purpose of that bank account, I believe so. Yes.
Speak louder, please. I heard you say yes. I just want to be sure I don't mishear you.
For the purpose of returning and safeguarding that guarantee that we will pay back once collection is made, yes, he was appointed
All right.
financial manager.
Thank you very much. Now, obviously, there's an awful lot of money that came in. How much of that came from Michael Yang?
As my partner, Mr. Lincoln On, has said it, we have an agreement. I think Mr. Lincoln On and
Speak a little louder, please.
I believe Mr. Lincoln On and Mr. Michael Young has an agreement.
So they have the agreement between Mr. Long and Mr. Michael Yang.
But I think he mentioned it on a few occasions that there's a clause of confidentiality in it, and that if both sides are willing to disclose this, then I believe we can be disclosed. But without that, we cannot disclose.
So Mr. Lincoln Ong knows how much the extent of Michael Yang's agreement, and it was a confidential agreement, correct?
For Mr. Michael Young to seek Mr. Michael Young's help in securing some of the funds and also acting as a guarantor for the suppliers.
Guarantor, advancing the money, getting suppliers. Michael Yang was involved up to his neck in all these arrangements, correct? And to make sure that he gets paid, he put in his friend, whom I showed you the pictures, not for President Duterte alone, but I showed you the pictures because Michael Yang and Lin Wei Xiong are obviously very close to one another. In fact, they're also interlocking in the directorship of corporations like Piley, etc. Correct?
Mr.
You
Michael,
guys see that, right?
Mr. Michael Young is not involved in all of the transactions. As I said, for some of the bigger transactions, there are, I guess I said when we bid it and we were not able to fulfill, we seek the help of him.
That may be what you said, but the facts show that Lin Wei Xiong was in some of the corporations of Mr. Ya, and Rose Nono, the wife of Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, is also involved in all the corporations involving Mr. Yang. I don't have to ask for permission to say yes, because I know, I see it. I have the documents.
Mr. Chairman,
Documents are the best evidence.
if they are a party of us from the start, then why wouldn't I just use that family biological company? This is really the most plain answer I can tell you. They are not a part of this from the start. We only seek help from them in the middle, and therefore we did not use that original company.
If that is so, then where did the money come from? You saw the numbers shown by Mr. Abrera earlier. You cannot account. Can you show it again? About 7+ billion pesos. 7.3 billion from PSDBM, payment from PSDBM. All right? And unconditional, what's that? Unaccounted importations of 7.9 billion. Down. There. Importations per PSDBM, 8.5 billion. Unaccounted importations of 7.9 billion. How much of that is Michael Yang? Lincoln Ong. Lincoln Ong.
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, meron pong non-disclosure clause. So I cannot disclose it.
Non-disclosure agreement ceases to be when public interest, especially of this gargantuan nature, where the people of this nation appeared to have been swindled by PSDBM and perhaps maybe by you. And I think you should come out because I am not going to say that NDA, and you are going to stay here. The health is over. If I have to appeal this to the Supreme Court, that we go back to the original ruling when you can be held indefinitely. What was that ruling, the original? Arnold case, in the Arnold case. I don't know if I can do that. But public interest seems to require that. Because you refuse to cooperate. Is Mr. Michael Young there? Is Mr. Michael Young there? Is Mr. Michael Young there, Mr. Kimbo?
He's still here, according to our monitors.
Yeah, but he refuses to answer. Mr. Michael Young, how much have you put into the company? I can see your face now. I have nothing against you. It's the documents that are against you.
杨先生参议员在问你杨先生有听到吗？
Aten?
杨先生有听到吗？有听见。参议员在问你，你在公司投资了多少钱？
我没有投资呀。
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I have not invested in the company.
So, Mr. Wang is lying. Mr. Lincoln is lying because according to Mr. Lincoln, you have a non-disclosure agreement.
所以你是说黄先生和林肯先生他们都是在说谎，他们都在说谎，因为你们两个，他刚才有提到说你们两个有个保密协议，有签的一份保密协议。杨先生听不到。杨先生听不到，你有听到？
这样吗？
现在听见了。现在没有。
你说什么？我刚才说我以前有帮他介绍通过的供应商。
你再讲一下，因为那个收讯不大好。
就给他介绍通过的供应商。
听不到，你有介绍朋友给他，是这样子吗？杨先生，对不起听不清楚。
这边有说了，你这边选择线啊。
之前有说你介绍朋友给他。
是我有中国的朋友。他们担保给他们卖货给他们。
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I've already mentioned this previously in the hearing that I have introduced friends to them to provide them with the goods. Cannot hear you, Mr. Chairman.
First, Mr. Lincoln Ong says you have a non-disclosure agreement. Second, Mr. Wang says that you've been borrowing, lending money.
刚才林根他有提到说你们两方有一个保密协议，有签了一份保密协议。然后第二，他也有说是你借钱给他们。
Ano na nangyari?
我没有借钱给他，我介绍中国的供应商，跟供应商跟他们是。
杨先生听不清楚。
我说我有介绍供应商给他们，也他们供应商给他
First, to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I did not lend money to them. I only introduced friends to them. Cannot hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Why is your best friend Lin Wei Zhong, and why is your principal interpreter, who now lives highly in a nice condominium in BDO, BDC, Lincoln Ong, why does he have several sports cars? And now he's saying he had a non-disclosure agreement with you to do other things that you're now lying about.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat the question? It's not clear.
The Netflix or microphone, please. Mr. Lincoln Ong says you have a non-disclosure agreement. Explain.
林肯翁先生他有提到说，你跟他有签的一份保密协议。
And already they've said, may I continue? And already they've said, Mr. Wang says that you have been supplying them with money, guaranteeing, and at the same time giving them suppliers, which is not at all surprising to me because you come from Xiamen or in that area where the suppliers come from. So how much money have you placed in terms of guaranteeing, in terms of money invested in this corporation?
刚才林肯翁先生他有提到说，你跟他有签的一份保密协议，他也有说是你借钱给他们，所以参议员想问你说，你到底在那家公司投资了多少钱，或是你担保了多少钱？你担保的金额是多少？因为我也参议员也提到说你是从厦门来的，很多提供商或供应商也是从厦门来的。听不到，杨先生听不到。杨先生，你的 mic，I think your mic is mute. Mr. Yang， 杨先生，你的 microphone。
听见吗？
听见了，听见了。听不到，你再讲一下。杨先生听不见。
我们这边
杨先生听不到你在讲什么。
会听不见了。见吗？
不是很清楚。
我的到这边的信号。
Mr. Chairman, it's not very clear. I don't hear him. He said it might be the connection on his end.
Lynette, try it again because I think he's giving you the disappearing act again.
好的，那你可以再回答一下参议员刚才的问题吗？听不到，杨先生。
OK 吧？有听见吗？
对，但是不是很清楚，就是有声音，但是不清楚你的答案。
Sabi niya.
没有听到。
有听见吗？
有听见，但是你的答案没有听见，没有听到你的答案，没有听不到。
你说的我听不太清楚。
好的，我再问一下，参议员刚才有提到说林肯翁先生他有说你有跟他签的一份保密协议，因为林肯翁先生他有讲说是你提供资金给他们，所以参议员想问你说你到底借钱在那家公司投资了多少钱，也借了多少金额给他们？
说了，我跟他以前有谈保密协议，经我介绍中我的朋友被他提供过，我没有过。
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I did not sign a non-disclosure agreement with Mr. Lincoln On. I only introduced friends to him who will supply them with the goods.
Yung Chinese. So, Mr. Lincoln Ong, either you or Michael Yang are lying.
Mr. Chairman,
I show Wang,
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Mr. Lincoln Ong, or shall I call Mr. Michael Yang, you're lying? Nizai show Wang.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, of course.
Hindi po malinaw yung translation, and then yung voice ni Mr. Michael is very soft. Nagkaka-lost in translation sila.
Hindi, ang sinasabi malinaw. Sabi, wala raw siyang pinipirman non-disclosure agreement with you. So tama na, okay na ako dyan. Isa sa inyo nagsisinungaling, pero it's obvious all of you have been lying, and lahat kayo iwas pusoy. Takbo dito, takbo doon. Uli na kayong lahat, ayaw nyo pang maniwala eh. Kung mag-cooperate ba kayo, di maawa pa sa inyo ang taong Pilipinas ang ginagawa ninyong kalokohan. My gosh. Okay, let me just say to Mr. Yang, or to Mr. Ong, ito ha, and Mr. Yang, Lynette, translate from the stenographic notes. All right, Lynette?
Oh, yes, Mr.
Are you
Chairman.
ready?
Yes.
This is the interpolation of Mr. Lacson to Mr. Ong. Mr. Ong, to settle. So, Mr. Michael Yang guarantees for us, period. Translate.
所以刚才Lacson 参议员他有问你说，所以他有问 Mr. Lincoln Ong，Lincoln Ong 先生说，所以你是说杨先生他有为你们担保，他说你有为他们担保。
Okay? So, sisinungaling si Mr. Yang. Dahil sabi niya, wala siyang kinalaman. Sabihin mo sa kanya yun.
所以你是在说谎吗？因为你说你跟这家公司没有关系，没有关联。
O di kaya, nagsisinungaling si Mr. Ong.
或是说Lincoln Ong 先生是在说谎。
May sining ganyan. Tigisa sila. Liar, liar. Sige, tuloy nyo. Ano sabi niya? Anong sagot? Walang sagot si Mr. Yang?
所以杨先生，你有什么想声明的吗？
我不知道你说他说什么，你要翻译一下。
刚才参议员他有说，在Lacson 参议员他有问Lincoln Ong 先生说，是不是你为他们做担保？是不是你借钱给他们？Lincoln Ong 先生有说是你借钱给他们，所以你说这是不实的吗？
我已经说了，我有介绍过我的朋友已经供应他们的电机。
杨先生听不到，你再讲一遍。
不好意思啊，我有介绍过我的供应商电机店，他们给他们去帮他们。
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I already answered this question before. I only introduced friends to them to supply them with the goods.
Non-disclosure agreement.
所以你跟他有签，所以你跟Lincoln Ong 先生是不是有签保密协议？
是啊，我们以前有个讲保密。
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we had signed a non-disclosure agreement before.
Ano? Sabi niya, wala siyang pinirmahan.
刚才你有说你没有签保密协议。听不到杨先生。
wala siyang pinirmahan, di ba? Right?
杨先生。Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I cannot hear him. 杨先生，你可以再讲一下。
Remember in your Chinese, Lynette, sabi niya kanina, wala siyang pinirmahan, right?
杨先生听不到，杨先生听不到。
听不到，我已经很大声了。
OK， 你是不是有跟 Lincoln Ong？ 刚才你是说，刚才我问你的时候，你是说你有跟 Lincoln Ong 签保密协议吗？
是啊，有。
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman, he said yes, that he had signed a non-disclosure agreement with Mr. Lincoln Ong.
So binabago na naman niya. Ano nakalagay doon sa non-disclosure agreement?
所以在保密协议里面有哪些东西，有记载了哪些东西？
没有讲保密，
The record state, babalik-balik.
听不到杨先生。杨先生，那个保密协议，内界保密协议有写什么？有记载什么？Mr. Chairman, I really cannot hear him or understand him.
What am I gonna do if he's pretending that you cannot understand, he doesn't want you to understand? What will I do, Lynette?
I think it's the connection also. It's not very...
No, it's not the connection. Let the record state, correct me if I'm wrong, Lynette, let the record state na kanina sinabi niya wala siyang pinirmahan disclosure agreement. Ngayon sinasabi niya mayroon naman. Naawa siguro siya kay Lincoln Ong. Let the record state that, because it's stated in the record already, but I'm reiterating it. All right, now, to continue. Senator Lacson, so hindi totoo na pinakilala ka lang at tapos natuloy-tuloy ang kanyang participation by way of continuously guaranteeing sa mga suppliers na babayaran nila parang utang, sabihin na natin na credit. End of quote. Translate please.
还有Lacson参议员他有问Lincoln Ong 先生说，所以Michael Young 先生他不只是介绍朋友给你们，但是他对你们向你们保证，向他的朋友保证，就是利用你的信用向他们保证，向你的朋友保证，向他们的朋友保证，是不是这样子的？所以在这里，在屏幕上你可以看到说，Lincoln Ong 先生他有说很清楚Michael Young 先生他有为我们担保。
我是有口头给他担保，我有口头以前朋友，我用口头给他担保，尽量。
所以你是有给你的朋友为他们担保？杨先生听不到。
我有口头给他担保，我有以前就用口头给他担保。
To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, verbally I guaranteed for them. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Michael Young's answer is verbally I guaranteed for them.
Kaya nga. Now, Mr. Chairman, I think ano yan? Sige. Sabi na naman ni Michael Ong, Mr. Chairman, I think medyo may na-miss yung interpreter kanina. I think Mr. Michael Young also mentioned that he guaranteed for us. So pag nagkakamali, sinasabi niya, may mali yung interpreter. But anyway, let's move on. Meron ba dyan? Eh.
Yung laway lang ako. Verbal lang ako.
Ha?
Sa TSN, verbal lang ako.
Senator Lacson, no. Can you make it bigger, please? Ano ba naman yan? Senator Lacson, wala sa akin. No guarantee, meaning salita lamang, laway lang, night lang. Ito si Mr. Ong quote, ito si Mr. Ong, kaya kayong bayaran ito. Close quote. Yun lang, ikaw lahat ang nagbabayad. Ang tanong ko sa iyo, how did you pay the suppliers? Money transfers? LC. Kaya sinabi niya. And then Mr. Ong says, yung mga ibang supplier namin talaga nagtatransfer talaga kami. Wala pa naman pong LC nung time na yan. Tapos may mga ibang supplier na hindi namin kayang bayaran. Humihingi ng tulong kay Mr. Michael Young, which he guaranteed with the supplier na pag nakatanggap po kami ng bayad from the government, yan ang importante na pag nakatanggap kami ng bayad from the government, and then that is the time we pay na lang. I emphasize that, Lynette, for you, para when you translate, ang lumalabas sa akin yan, kaya nilagay si Lee Wei Xiong, yan ang guarantor niya na mababayaran siya. Pag yung kanyang ina-advance, sinisiguro ni Li Wei-xiong na makukuha niya yung pera niya. Okay?
OK, Mr. Chairman，杨先生，参议员你在屏幕上可以看到王先生他的回答，他有说，等一下，他有说我
Sabi
们
niya si
向
Mr. Ong, ha? Mr. Ong ang nagsabi niya, na?
对对对，yes Mr. Chairman，所以你可以在屏幕上看到王先生他有说我们向麦克亮先生寻求帮助，他向我们的供应商保证，当我们收到政府的付款时，我们就会付他们那笔款项。所以参议员在想说，这就是为什么你把林伟雄放在董事会上，就是让林伟雄可以帮助做担保，说你会得到你应该有的，就是你为他们垫付的，你会得到。
这个我以前给他们介绍，我有口头给他担保，有口头给他们担保，他们这点会到点会给他。
Why do I have to?
太林伟雄我没有，我第一款没有给他。
听不到，最后那句听不到。
没有投机，我没有投钱，也没有太林伟雄。
Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, Mr. Michael Yang said that I only verbally guaranteed for them. I did not send Mr. Lin Wei-xiong, and I also did not invest money into the company.
I have no more questions for the moment. Res ipsa loquitur. I think speaks for itself. Anyway, let me now go to Ms. Mago.
Good afternoon po, Mr. Chairman.
Afternoon. Ms. Mago, what was your first employment and where?
I was employed as a regulatory pharmacist po in a Korean company.
Gano'ng katagal?
Around 6 to 7 months po, Mr. Chairman.
6 to 7 months. And when did you first work?
I think it was around April 2017 po.
From graduation?
After I passed the licensure exam po.
Yeah, from graduation.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Did you receive any salary?
Yes, I did po.
Will you tell us kung magkano sinabi mo? If you want to only.
How much I earned from my first job po, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I be allowed to keep it private po?
Well, I was just hoping that I could find out so in the next round of salaries come into legislation, the pharmacists could get better money.
I'd like to keep it private po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you do like to keep private selectively, right? Namimili ka na sasabihin mo, tapos babawiin mo later. Did you receive income as the regulatory affairs head of Pharmaceutical?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
And
Monthly
they paid
salary.
you well.
Po?
They paid you well, right?
Yes po.
You were happy.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. I am paid.
Enough to do anything that they want you to do.
Under moral
So you always
obligations.
followed your boss, right?
Under moral obligations po, Mr. Chairman.
What did you say? Moral obligation? When you say something, is that moral and then you take it back the next day? Don't preach to me about morality, please. My gloves are off you. I asked you several times, nag-gancho nyo ang gobyerno. Anong term ko doon?
Swindle.
Na-swindle nyo ang gobyerno and you said, I believe so, 2 beses. And then a week later, you were in Congress saying, napilit ka, wala naman pumilit sa'yo. Anyway, let's go on. Did you pay taxes in relation to the compensation that you received?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman, because I'm a salaried employee po.
So you were getting withholding taxes, right? They were withholding your taxes, right?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Tama, okay. Did you receive any income as a corporate secretary of Business Beyond Limits, OPC?
I haven't received any single peso from Business Beyond Limits, Mr. Chairman.
Eh, anong pakinabang mo doon sa Business Beyond Limits?
I was just asked to perform a few services po for the company.
Services.
For the bidding po, specifically for the bidding, joint venture po ng Farmally and Business Beyond Limits.
Did you do anything illegal during that time? Or as you say, immoral?
I don't think so po, Mr. Chairman.
No, I need a definitive answer.
No po.
No, thank you. Do you even have a tax identification number or TIN?
I do have a tax identification number po, Mr.
What is your
Chairman.
TIN number?
Let me check lang po, Mr. Chairman. Or if I may be allowed to email it to Director
No. Check it down. Do not be too clever and a half. I'm tired of that. Napaso na ako sa iyo. You know, the nice thing about telling the truth is you'll always be respected. But if you keep shifting, then you lose the respect. Do you believe in that principle?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
I hope so.
Mr. Chairman, regarding my TIN number po, may I be allowed to consult with my legal counsel?
No, you may not. That is public. What you have used that. You know when you file, you put your TIN number. Go ahead. There's nothing secret about that.
Again, Mr. Chairman, please allow me to consult legal counsel.
No. Your days of being respected and you're really trying to do something that I don't think I will allow you to do so. Otherwise, I will now confront you with it. I know your TIN number. So it's useless to lie. Why did you make a point of, may I look for it, sir? And then siguro na alaman mo, may ginawa kang mali. Ngayon, ayaw mo na ibigay. That's my conclusion. I asked you, do you have a TIN number? Yes. You were very emphatic. Do you have it? Yes. Then he said, may I be allowed to look for it? Yes. And then when I ask you about telling the truth, all of a sudden you say, uy, baka naalala ko, I even ask you kung legal or you have anything illegal. O ayan, nagbabago ka na naman. Under the law, I can ask you. You have a right to consult your lawyer. But remember, there is a law that says when we ask you a question, it's reasonable, you have to answer the question. What was that? Section 150? You want to put it on the board? Are you ready to answer or not? I will. If you don't want to answer, if you consulted your lawyer, that's fine with me.
May I be allowed to share my TIN number in private po, Mr. Chairman?
No, because this is a public hearing. It's not that one. Sorry. Any person who shall restrain another or refuses to be sworn or placed under affirmation or to answer any legal inquiry or to produce any books, papers, documents, or records in his possession when required by them to do so in the exercise of their functions. That's punishable. Anyway, I'll go ahead. I'll let you go. Sige. Let's go back to my line of questioning. You have a TIN number. I have your TIN number anyway. You have had occasion to use that TIN number, right?
I'm sorry po, Mr. Chairman. Ano po ulit yun?
Occasion to have to put that TIN number when you make transactions, right? With the government?
Yes po, tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, ang bilis mo sumagot, ha? All right. There are occasions in the past, and I'll cite it to you, that your TIN number is an invalid TIN number. We have at least 2 official documents from the Bureau of Internal Revenue certifying that your TIN number is invalid. Now, why do you think that happened?
Mr. Chairman, may I be allowed to read what's on the screen po?
Huh?
May I be allowed to read what's on the screen first po, Mr. Chairman, before answering your question?
I'm asking you a question. What are you worried about?
I'm reading the statement that was posted earlier on the screen, Mr. Chairman. I think it was the response from the BIR.
Okay, read it. I have nothing to hide. I don't lie. I just want to make sure you're telling me the truth. Go ahead and read it. Read it aloud.
It's not posted anymore, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, labas niyo. Read it. Aloud, please.
This refers to your letter dated November 11, 2020.
This is addressed to Director General Rodolfo Noel Kimbo, correct?
Yes, tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Sige, basahin mo in this refers.
This refers to your letter dated November 11, 2021, requesting for clarification on some details about Crizel Grace Mago, one of the officers or employees of Pharmaly Pharmaceutical Corporation, in relation to our letter dated September 22 of 2021. In that letter, we mentioned that there are no records available under that said name. You have found, however, from the documents obtained from the Securities and Exchange Commission that Ms. Mago's TIN number is 702-911-769-000. Relative hereto, you are requesting for the profile details of the taxpayer using the above-mentioned TIN. In reply, please be informed that upon verification of the Bureau's Integrated Tax System or ITS, Internal Revenue Integrated System or IRIS, and E-Reg system, we reiterate our earlier findings that there are no records available for Crizel Grace Mago. This only shows that said taxpayer is not registered with the BIR. Verification also discloses that TIN 702-911-769-000 is an invalid TIN.
What do you say about that now?
Mr. Chairman, if I remember it correctly po, my TIN was registered by my first job, yung company po, that Korean company, and they were paying my taxes po as a salaried employee. And this is also the tax number, tax identification number that I provided to Pharmaly once I got employed. And I believe that they are paying my taxes po through this TIN number. So I also don't know why invalid po yung TIN number ko. But please allow me to check po kung what's wrong, kung bakit po invalid yung TIN. As far as I know, mayroon pong mga annual, I'm not aware, I'm not sure of that BIR form na pinaprovide po sa mga employees annually regarding the TIN po na binabayaran.
You use the TIN number to represent Pharmaly? in their corporate engagements.
Yes po, Mr.
Sabi ngayon ng BIR, walang record na ganyan. That the
Mr.
taxpayer is not registered with the BIR. It also shows that it is an invalid TIN. Why would you do that?
I'm actually clueless din po, Mr. Chairman, but please allow me to check because I was registered by my first company po with the
No,
BIR.
I know you already said that, but this is the BIR.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman, but I also have to do
Are we saying now that ito, sulat ka, sabi ni Kim, sulat ka kay Kimbo, nakapirma si Cesar R. Dulay, Commissioner of Interior and Revenue. In reply, please be informed that upon verification of the BIR stock system, Internal Revenue Service, we reiterate our earlier findings that there are no records available for Grisel Grace Mago. This only shows that said taxpayer is not registered with the BIR. Verification also discloses that TIN 702-911-769-000 is an invalid TIN. Now, this is the BIR, the highest officer of the BIR. And they're saying that you registered an invalid TIN number. Why would you do that in a company that is now under serious investigation for defrauding the government of much money that is supposed to go to the people of this country who are suffering from pandemic?
Mr. Chairman, I have no intention to register an invalid TIN.
I did say that you had any intention.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted that on
Lumabas,
record.
wala ka talagang nakalagay na tamang TIN.
Opo. So, please allow me to also double check with the company that registered my
We already double checked. The BIR has already said that.
But from what I remember, Mr. Chairman, and if you will allow me po to submit a copy.
That is my permission. You can do whatever you want.
Yes po. I will submit a copy of the BIR form that I am provided po by the company, the annual form po, as proof that the company is paying my taxes po.
Isn't the BIR have a checkered record when it comes to telling the truth? Nagbabago ka, dinideny mo yung sinasabi mo, papahiya mo pa kami doon sa lower house because you were in a friendlier scenario, sasabihin mo pa na under pressure ka, and you said, wala naman mapapayag dito na under pressure ka ng panahon na yan. Ngayon, mali na naman yung TIN mo. What do you think we should believe? You cannot forever masquerade as a goody-goody young lady. That's what I believed you before. You did not even bother to check if your employer really registered you with the BIR. That's negligence on your part. So now we're in another wild goose chase because of your negligence, allegedly, or maybe because you were filing for Farmali, you were doing this to throw us off the track. Can you blame us?
Hindi po, Mr. Chairman, but I will provide whatever document that was provided for me, to me po, by the first company and also formally po, with regards to the payment of my taxes po.
What is your personal responsibility? Supplying of taxpayer identification number 257. Any person required under the authority of this code to make, render, or file a return, statement, or other document shall be supplied with or assigned a taxpayer's identification number. We shall indicate in such return statement or document filed with the Bureau of Interior for its proper identification for tax purposes, and we shall indicate in certain documents, such as but not limited to the following, etc., etc. Any person under Section 254 attempt to evade or defeat taxes who willfully attempt in any manner or avoid or evade or defeat any tax imposed under this code, the payment thereof shall, in addition to other penalties, goes on. So the TIN number is a way upon which the BIR can reliably find out whether you are the same person because the TNA sticks with you all your life. Right?
Yes po, Mr.
You
Chairman.
can see that, right?
Yes po.
So you'll have to see your way clear with the BIR to find out what the problem is.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
But I am well within my rights to ask you, when we ask the BIR, this is what happened. Especially you belong to a company that was tied, Mr. Dargani, whom you are very loyal to, tried to run away from the government by using a plane. And even use your company. Did you not have knowledge that he was going to use your company?
Wala po, Mr. Chairman.
Ano pa ang kampanya mo?
It was Business Beyond Limits OPC.
Ano yung sa application niya? So
The
is it
company
loyal?
is not mine po.
Can you provide us at least with the last 3 digits of your TIN?
769 po.
769. Oh. Nakapirma ka dyan. Yan ang number mo, yung lumang number mo. Nakapirma ka. O, ayan, o. 702-911 750, 769 0000. Ayan, sa letter mo, nakapirma ka dyan. Very truly yours. Di ba?
Tama po, Mr.
So,
Chairman.
hindi mo, bakit nila sasabihin mali yan? Papalindigan mo yan, di ba?
As of the moment, I'm also clueless, Mr. Chairman, but I will check po.
It's a nice word, clueless, isn't it? I hope you're not clueless to know that you're in very serious waters because you have already done certain illegal acts here by lying. You know, initially I was very, very kind to you. Then you did that number on us. I'm not vengeful. I just was terribly crestfallen and disappointed that a Paulinian like you will do that. You're not a credit to St. Paul's. Okay.
Copy of ID.
Submit to us a copy of your ID.
Do you have a copy of your ITR?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman, I have po.
Did you submit it to the committee?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. Yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina.
Ano yan?
Yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina, Mr. Chairman, that I will submit any document that I have as proof that I paid my
I
taxes.
don't think I remember you saying that. You said you'll have to call. You're asking me permission whether you can do it in private or you can even consult the fact that your lawyer, right? Di ba? Pero
Yes,
may
ma'am.
sinasabi yan ngayon. So submit mo.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. I will submit po.
Okay, no more questions for the moment. See, we keep lying. Everybody's lying. It's a train wreck of lies. Every section that we try to ask, may lying, may evasion. Di ba yung unang ginawa mo dito, sabi mo, swindle, tapos lumipat ka, lying yun. Bumaliktad ka doon sa kabila. Sabi mo, tinatakot ka. Di naman kayo tinatakot. Okay. I'll excuse you for the moment. Unless Senator Dillon wants to ask a question. Let me call Ms. Bial. Ms. Bial, are you there?
Mr. Chairman.
You know that you are in a lot of trouble. You heard Mr. Abiera cite some of the rulings that show that you could go to 2 years in jail for every every offense, right?
Yes,
Senator Gilon and I have been very kind with you because, you know, para ka niloko, 4,000 pesos lang, magpapakulong ka pa dyan. You understand where we're coming from, Mr. Bial?
sir. Mr. Chairman.
You understand where we're coming from. We're trying to be nice to you, gentle to you, because sabi mo, binayaran ka lang ng 4,000, pero pirma ka ng pirma. Nakita mo yung rules and regulations na sinasabi pwede kang magkaroon ng 2 years imprisonment. Tama po ba yan?
Yes po.
Kada offense. Tama po ba yan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Hindi ko natatanong kung bakit kayo pirma ng pirma, pero do you know Michael Young, whether in a personal or professional capacity?
No po, Mr.
Ang
Chairman.
tagal niyo sumagot. Kilala niyo
No
ba
po.
o hindi?
No.
We have noticed that you have been faithful in following and attending the hearings. Up to now, we know you are an external certified public accountant, CPA, for Farmali. Have you handled other accounting work for other corporations?
I have a bookkeeping, sir.
Ma'am, lakas nun, hindi ko kayo marinig.
Meron po akong bookkeeping. Then,
Bookkeeping.
opo.
Yung ba literally, tagatago kayo ng libro sa katotohanan? I'm forced to do that because I've become very jaded with all the witnesses here, including you. Nagtatagol ka mga sa namin, kawawa naman to, kako, ginamit lang ito eh. Pero anyway, yan lang tayo. Apart from Farmali Pharmaceutical Corporation, do you remember rendering? Which corporations did you render any of the corporations mentioned in this hearing?
None po. None po,
Meron.
Chairman.
Meron, darling. Sipin mo maigi para hindi ka ma-perjury. Oh, Pali Estate Holding Corporation. Correct? Babasahin ko sa ito. Pakita nyo ito. Ayan, oh. Nakapirma ka rito. Report of Independent Certified Public Accountant to Company Income Tax Returns. Board of Directors and Stockholders, Pali Holdings Incorporated. Pali Holdings. I have audited the financial statement of Pali Holdings for the year ending December 31, 2016, on which I have rendered the attached report dated March 14, 2017. In compliance with revenue regulations B20, I am stating the following: taxes paid or accrued, etc., etc. I am not related by consanguinity or affinity. Signed, Iluminada A. Sebial. So, hindi totoo yung sinasabi mo na wala ka nang hinawakan dito sa mga ibang kumpanya. Itong grupong ito. Tama?
Ay, hindi ko na po natandaan.
Hindi nyo na matandaan. Bakit ba pinapahirapan nyo kami, ate? Mahuhuli naman eh. Di ba? Sus Maria Josep, oh. Oh. Ito naman. Iluminada Sebial as external CPA for both Farmali, Medical Young Referred Company, and Pili Estate, Michael Young Company, Clark Majestic, second largest company. Kasama po ba kayo dyan sa Clark Majestic? At saka dito sa Philippine Pudi Sheng Group.
Wala po akong tandaan niya.
Sama po ba kayo dyan?
Wala po akong natandaan po.
Wala kayo natandaan. Hindi mo ka namang hindi kayo nag-Alzheimer's pa. Tawa-tawa naman tayo. Oh. Natawanan nyo lang ako. Kawawa naman kami dito. O, tanayo ko kayo.
Wala po talagang natandaan niya.
Remember that you're under oath, ate. Who approached you to make the audit for Pili Holdings Incorporated? Was it Lincoln Ong? Answer. Sino po ang nag-approach sa inyo to make the audit for Pili Holdings Incorporated?
Ay, hindi ko na po
Lincoln Ong po ba?
matandaan. Chairman. 27.
Ano po?
Hindi ko na po matandaan yun po,
Oh,
Mr.
ibigay
Chair.
na naman ang sagot. Hindi ko na matandaan. Si Michael Young po ba? Bigla na lang kayo nag-audit, hindi nyo matandaan. Pwede ba naman hindi nyo maintandahan? Ako naman, oh, ate. Hindi nyo matandaan? Kinuha kayo, hindi nyo matandaan? Ako, kahit na hindi ako binayaran ng kliyente ko, natatandaan ko eh. O ate, si Rose Nonolim, in-approach ba kayo?
Hindi po.
Oh. Who did you interact then with Piley? Nung ginawa niyo yung auditing ninyo, sino kausap niyo, ate? Sorry po ha, I have to ask you these questions. Sino po ang kumausap sa inyo, ate?
Hindi ko po matandaan po. Check ko lang po sa records kung kailan po meron po akong napirma na ano.
Eh, humaharap kayo dito, pwede kayo talagang kahit ano, dapat sinecheck nyo ng records nyo bago kayo humarap. Did you render any of the corporations associated with Michael Yang and other such personalities such as Lin Wei Xiong? Naging kliyente niyo ba siya?
Hindi ko po nga matandaan po, Mr. Chairman.
Hindi niyo rin matandaan.
Opo.
May natatandaan ba kayong kliyente niyo? Ano ba naman ate? Hirap naman ang buhay natin. Ay naku ate. Hindi naman pwedeng hindi niyo maintindihan. Babasa ka ko na adjust twinkle kayo. I'm not mocking you. I'm just really shaking my head in disgust. Oh, si Rose Donolim, hindi niyo matandaan. Hindi niyo matandaan sila? Si Wang Su yan? Hindi niyo matandaan?
Hindi rin po.
Ha?
Hindi po, Mr. Chairman.
Pero kilala mo siya. Eh, sino kumuha sa inyo? Si Mohit ba?
Si Mr. Mariano po.
Oh, Mr. Mariano, baliktad na mundo.
Siya pong sa audit.
Mr. Mariano, andyan ka ba?
Here, sir.
Ikaw ba kumuha kay ate?
For Farmally Pharmaceutical po.
Kinuha mo siya?
Yes po.
Oh, bakit mo siya kinuha?
Siya po, sir, yung kilala ko po na auditor.
Saan mo siya nakilala?
Sa BIR po, sir, yung messenger ko po.
Messenger mo? So bago mo siya pinakilala sa'yo ng messenger mo, hinanapan ka ba ng Parmalee ng external auditor?
Hindi po, sir.
O, paano mo binigay? Hinila mo lang siya. Nanghula ka lang, no? Kailangan ng Parmalee ng external auditor. Ganun ba yun?
Sir, that was
Naman yan, palabu istorya nyo.
mga 2 to 3 years ago pa po ata, sir, kami with Miss Sibyal.
No, hindi ko tinatanong kung gaano katagal. Tinatanong ko bakit mo i-recommend. Sinabihan ka ba ng Parmalee? Hanap mo ako ng external auditor?
Hindi po, sir.
Okay ba? Sindikato kayo talaga? Teammate kayong dalawa?
Hindi po, sir.
O ano pala? Paano nangyari yan?
Kay Miss Sibyal po kami nagpapa-audit, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, well. You know, this is one of the most unique experiences I've had since I've been Blue Ribbon. Nobody remembers, everybody evades. Pag nakalimutan, I don't remember. Nahuhuli naman lahat kayo eh. Di ba? Huwag naman ganyan. Alright? Ate, ano na lang natatandaan mo? Sige, baliktad ang tanong. Ano ba natatandaan mo na lang? Tama ba yung ginawa mo? Sina-certify mo, tapos hindi mo sila matandaan? Sabi mo, hindi mo matandaan yung file, pero ikaw nag-certify. Lahat ng ginawa mo, tama. Ako gano'n. Lahat ng ginawa nila, tama. O paano naman yan? Alam niyo, ang certified public accountant, talagang ay tama yan. Alam niyo naman yan, hindi ko na kailangan dapat sabihin. Okay, thank you. I don't want to be unnice to a nice lady like you. You look like a very nice lady and I respect you. I'm just sorry that you're placed in the circumstances that I don't know whether it's force of the economic crunch. But you know, that's not an excuse. Anyway, sana makatulong kayo sa bayan natin. Kawawa na yung bayan natin eh. Di po ba? Ma'am, di po ba?
Yes po.
Di ba kayo natatakot ang bayan natin eh? Ang utang na ngayon eh, ilan na Brian? 11 trillion na. Tapos ang utang natin dito sa pandemic eh 1.1 trillion sa World Bank. Mabalan niyo yan? Tapos tinamaan tayo, 5 tulay, baksak sa Palawan, mga airport sira, nagiba lahat yung airport ng Siargao. Hindi makakapagtrabaho yung karamihan ng tao sa Siargao, sa tourism. Gibang-giba. So wala tayong panlaban sa tourism. Frontliner natin yan. Pati yung Bohol, tinamaan. Kung ate, sabi na kayo ng totoo para tumulong kayo. I guess that would be, I don't know, I wanted to finish it today, but I guess marami pang questions unanswered.
Green trends. Green trends.
I don't know who to ask. I just want to point of information to my colleague, Senator Dillon, and others who are listening in. I just want a point of information here that green trend is how many cases? 94 cases of from the BIR open cases of investigation. 94 cases. Open cases, open file. Green Trend 94. Yan yung kinuha na ng Tiger Phil. Yan. At nakakuha sila ng ilan. March 12, first layer, Green Trend. Ang unit price nila 18 pesos. Total amount 9 million. Tapos March 25, 2020, nakakuha sila ng 11.9 million. Tapos the next one, third layer, 13 million dito sa March 25. Ulit. Ibig sabihin, wala nakakakilala dyan. Hindi alam kung anong pwesto, anong lugar. Pero ang BIR, meron silang 94 open cases. Ewan ko kung ano ibig sabihin nun. Ano ba ibig sabihin nun? Meron bang tao sa BIR dyan? Ha? Ayan, ano nakalagay dyan? Certification. Laki mo ito. A foresaid taxpayer has 94 open cases as of September 2021 for integrated taxpayer system, case monitoring system for failure to file the following tax return. To wit, taxable year 2016, form type, ayan, dami. Hanggang 2021, taxable year. I don't know how to make ends about this, but Mr. Duterte, payagan niya na yung BIR para mapaliwanag naman sa taong bayan kung ano ibig sabihin naman 94 cases. Ano po? Diastolic blood pressure, mataas yung 94.
Maybe our consultant, Mr. Abrea, can give us I think he came from the BIR before. Can he give us a brief explanation?
Good suggestion. Mr. Abrea, Raymond, can you explain this to us? Mr. Abrea, are you still there?
Wala na.
I'm sorry, he left already. May prior engagement. That's why inuna ko siya. I'm sorry. Well, maybe at the next hearing, shall we say when? Our opening session will be on January 17. What is your preference, Senator Dillon? January 20?
Well, we can have it. We can have one hearing before we open our session.
I agree. My sentiments as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Kimbo, can you give us a date?
Your Honor, we will look at the calendar and we will
Can you
inform
look
you
now
so
para
that
before we adjourn? A lot of people follow. I was in Batangas yesterday. There's a very nice restaurant there that serves bulalo. I was taken there by the mayor. And all the people went out and they said they were following religiously our investigations. And they like it because sabi nila na nakakalaban ang tao sa inyo, sa Blue Ribbon. Lahat kayo dyan, Senator Dillon, lahat kayo, sinabi niya. Natutuwa naman ako, I was very proud. Ganun rin yung ibang mga customers doon. So we have to come out with a specific taste. Parang naging teleserye na ito eh. Hindi ko naman sinasadya yan eh. Pero talagang galit ang tao sa nangyayari. Oh, can you give us a date, please?
January 13, Your Honor.
What is that? Is that Thursday, January 13?
Thursday, Your Honor.
All right.
Thursday, Your Honor, and then sessions will resume on the 17th, Your Honor.
Right. Would you like to do that, Senator Dillon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to suspend our sessions, if that is in order, until January 13 at a time convenient to the chair.
Yes, sir. In the meantime, shall we say 2 o'clock?
2 o'clock is fine, Mr. Chair.
2 o'clock is agreeable? I should do it in the morning because kung media lang ang hinahabol natin, we should finish by 1. Hindi naman ako nung mahabol ng media eh. Kaya lang, we have so many work to do eh. I'm sure we'll still be busy with the typhoon aftermath. I'm glad that the Secretary of National Defense, as an aside, I think they sent C-130 already to pick up some of the passengers stranded at the airport because they can negotiate that airport even though there's no terminal. And they were able to get some of the people out. And I commend Secretary Lorenzana for that. But by January 13, at 2 o'clock will be fine. So I also would like to make a request to the Director General. I'd like to write a letter with the permission of Senator Dillon and our colleagues that we sent the letter already to the Secretary of Justice on some of our findings that I think we can move on already, if that's okay.
Yes, Your Honor. It has been sent to your staff, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator Dillon.
may I also request that we officially inquire from the Commission on Audit and the Bureau of Internal Revenue as to the status of the investigation that they are conducting on this on this case. They have committed to us that before the year is over, they can come up with some report. And it is appropriate that we should ask for the status of the investigation that they're doing, if it is in order, Mr. Chairman.
We actually inquired already, Senator Frank, November 10, 2021. But we will have to follow up again. I think you're right. Before the year is over, I think Senator Mr. Kimbo, I'd be beholden to you if you submit the letter of inquiry, and I'd like to sign it right away.
On it, Your Honor.
Will you do that, please?
On it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. You're the most capable, differently abled person I have in life. I've met in life, and I commend you for that. The Commission on Audit is there, Senator Dillon. May I call on the COA? Are you there? Miss Carmelita Enriquez? Ma'am, are you there? Will the COA please answer? Can you call just in case they're not listening to us?
We're checking, Your Honor. They were here during the beginning.
Yeah.
Miss Ugay is still there, Your Honor. Still
Who?
connected. Ugay, Rodora Ugay.
Rodora Ugay. There's a town in Bicol named Ubay, if I'm not mistaken. Bohol, that's really badly decimated. We're trying to help them right now. Miss Ugay, can you report to us so at least makabawi-bawi naman yung tiga Ubay sa damage sila dito para baka mabawi pa natin yung pera sa mga taong ito na binayad sa kanila unfairly dito sa Parmali. Mr. Ugay? Miss Ugay rather? Rodora, lovely name.
There's also Carmelita Enriquez, Your Honor.
Yeah, I called her already.
I think they may have left already, sir.
Yes, apparently. Wow. Meron na? There you go. You're in the car already. Are you driving, ma'am? Miss Enriquez?
No, sir.
Si Ugay.
Miss Ugay?
I am.
Miss
No, I'm not. Yes, sir. I'm in the midst of traffic.
Well, you're driving. You have a driver?
No, I'm not driving, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
want you to get into a mess up. Is there any status report on what we have requested from the COA? After all, I voted for Mr. Aguinaldo in spite of the harassment of COA upon my person on a case supposedly done 30 years ago when I was still in SBMA that we have already explained, and that was clearly, I mean, I have no problems with that. I did everything right in Subic. Binoto ko po siya sa Supreme Court.
Sir, Your Honor, are you asking for the status of the audit?
Yes.
Special audit,
Yes,
sir?
ma'am. Report. Sabi nyo, magre-report kayo kung tinutuloy niya yung audit, lalo na yung mga fraud, waste, and abuse, at saka yung overpricing.
Sir, there is a special audit team created for that, and I am not part of the audit team. And I'm also not in the position to monitor the status of their audit, sir.
Ma'am,
I am the auditor of the DOE,
Punta
sir.
lang kay Commissioner Aguinaldo. Bilang
Okay po,
Aguinaldo,
sir.
bago matapos ang taon, pwedeng padala sa amin right away kung anong status. Papadala ko na lang sa ibang senador, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Kita nyo, natinanong ko kayo, lumakad ang traffic, oh. Okay, go ahead.
Nalobat nga po ako, lang ako, hotspot sa aking data.
Kaya nga, naging high bat na kayo ngayon. Ano sagot po? Aabot ba? Before the year is over?
Sir, I'm very sorry I'm not in the position to give you the status because I am not part of that
asking you for the
team.
status, paabot nyo lang. Susulat rin kami. Sayang naman yung pagkaten nyo, iniwanan nyo na nga kami. Nandiyan na kayo kagad sa traffic, dito pa kami. Pwede ba pakisabi lang doon sa COA? Ano po? I'm using the formal and informal way.
Sasabihin ko po, sir, pero kung ako po hindi ako makapagsabi na kung kailan sila matatapos because hindi nga po ako part ng audit team.
Sinabi niyo na po yun. Ang sinasabi ko lang, follow-up namin ni Senator Gilon. Anong status na? Sagutin lang po yung sulat namin. Pwede po ba?
Yeah. Well,
Sige, sir, sasabihin ko na lang po doon sa paparating na lang po sa central office, sir.
Sige po. Okay. Senator Kimba, Director Kimbo, please follow up formally on phone. On follow-up letter and informally by telephone.
Yes, Your Honor, on it.
Thank you. Well, I guess it's time to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. I hope all of you are well. Pray for the people out there who are suffering right now in our country, not only in the typhoon, but those who are hungry and those who are sick, and those who need medicine, and those who need services, those who are terribly depressed on what is happening to our country. And let's pray for enlightenment for our president, that he will see the light once again, because we're all born with the light. Sometimes it becomes dark because we're consumed by power. Power that brings us to darkness. That is what happened to Lucifer. He came out of the light. So let's pray that he gets back into the fold of what is right and good for our country and for all of us, included. Not just him, but all of us. Thank you all very much. I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas from Senator Delon and I and all the others from Broome. God bless you. And
Good night.
please pray for the country and do something for the country. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. Thank you very much. Session is suspended as moved by Senator Delon on 13 January at 2 p.m. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Thank you. God bless you all.
Okay.